Here's the 3-0 on the way. Swing and a base hit up the middle. That's going to score a run. Perez is in, and the Tigers strike first, 1-0. First and second, and the pitch. Swing and a line drive, base hit into center field. Here comes the run. Myers up and gunning to the plate, and not in time. Meadows in to score, and it's 2-0 Detroit.
Bobby Witt, who has popped to second and popped out in foul ground to first. First pitch. He swings, laces it into left field. A base hit for Bobby Witt. Garcia jogs in from third and scores, and the Royals strike first in game one. It's 1-0 in the sixth.
Third time on the payoff pitch, swinging a liner down the right field line. It's a base hit, and it may well tie the game. Vientos around third. He scores. Mike Sarbaugh gives the green light to Alonso as the ball got dug out of the corner. The relay throw is bobbled, and the Mets have tied the game as Jesse Winker slides into third. And a swing and a bouncer right side. It's a base hit. One run is in for New York. Here comes Vientos from second. The throw goes to third, and the Mets have scored 5 runs in the fifth. They now lead the Brewers 8-4. And this entire rally has happened with 2 outs.
For the set, the pitch, swing and a high fly ball, way back in left field, gone! That ball was destroyed by Tatis to left field. 2-0 San Diego.
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
Hey, good morning. It is a hump day. It is the second day of October. How the heck are y'all doing today? A little playoff baseball yesterday in a depressed run environment.
Yes, 1 home run out of 4 games.
Yeah, there was
just one.
I think through the 7th inning of the late game last night, which, God, thank you for the pitch clock for people that work early in the morning.
Yeah.
That game got started late, and it was over before bedtime, or some people's bedtime that work these hours. But we had I've labeled it the depressed run environment. If you were
I like that.
If you were playing the unders yesterday, even a game that had a total of 6.5 was clearly under. But I think through the 7th inning last night of the Padre-Brave game, the combined batting average for the day was 206. I mean, there were aces dealing. Skubal,
Yep.
Reagans, Burns pitched pretty well. They just couldn't get any timely hits in Baltimore. And then, the Brewers Mets game got a little sideways with an 8-4 game.
A lot of opposite hits in that one, too.
But I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the Electric Factory. Y'all might be sleeping on
Electric Factory.
Y'all might be sleeping on the Padres. Petco Park is rocking.
Yeah.
Fernando Tatis is built for this stage. I was rather entertained by what I saw in San Diego last night.
I remember taking slow pitch softball hacks like that, like Fernando Tatis Jr. last night.
And
our only home run last night.
I didn't in a couple of bracket challenges I did not select the Padres to win the World Series. I'm regretting that. I think they're the best team in baseball when healthy.
They're and another team too that we mentioned is playing playoff baseball too. Now, Tarek Skubal, when he's not pitching, we'll see what happens because I'm obviously keeping a very close eye on that one, considering what happened to Cleveland in the final weekend of the regular season against the Astros. I would much prefer the Detroit Tigers.
Oh, he's scared. I told me about nothing to worry about. The Astros won't be there.
He's an equalizer. I mean, he is, man, that is what a true ace looks like. Mm-hmm. Like Skubal and Reagans were really, really good. And, Detroit's been playing playoff baseball for a while.
Very dangerous.
Jimmy, because Alvarez, even though he hit the hardest ball yesterday, he's hobbled. They got Hunter Brown going today, who's pitched pretty well, and he's a Tiger fan.
They're done, and it's okay. I mean, it was an accomplishment to get back to that. They're playing with house money or FU money, and so if they get a run going, great. If not, the Tigers continue to roll along, and I think they're to be feared if you're Cleveland because you throw everything out that the season is over. And like we were talking about, they've been playing playoff baseball for the last month. So if you're anybody else, the sooner they're out, the better.
Yeah. Hey, watch out, man. You're going to take a crack at his baseball team.
Tigers,
people
World
will be
Series.
emailing him about his baseball team.
Oh, that happened.
Yes.
That happened yesterday.
You're going to read that email a little bit later. The thing, though, is wild about yesterday, and it was nice to have fall baseball in the greatest sports month of the entire calendar
Damn right.
year. All right, October, and then we can debate, too. Speaking of the debate, I got thoughts. That's coming in just a moment.
By the way, I watched a snippet of it, but I was also, it was suggested that I wouldn't watch a minute of it. Same email.
Why don't you just read that email now?
Would you like me to read an email?
No, we won't start that way. I mean, I want to gas the fire, have that guy show up at 50th and Capitol.
Only if they bring breakfast.
They must have listened to the podcast because the email came in a little bit later yesterday.
Yeah, that guy ain't bringing breakfast. He's probably bringing
granola.
I don't know, probably a red dot to Nick. But back to the baseball. There's a wild stat out there that in game one, if you win game one in the current wild card setup, this new setup, the teams that win game one are 8-0. The teams that win game one, they go on to win game two 7 of the 8 times.
Yeah, it's tough.
So there could be a couple of teams going home today. And we're going to have to spend another day of watching the Royals and the Orioles and trying to get out of my head that Sean McDonough is not doing the game for CBS.
Yeah.
That he is not doing the Saturday afternoon CBS game.
There's just something about it.
I was waiting for Tim McCarver, rest in peace, to say something, and then suddenly I hear not Tim McCarver. I was like, whoa.
Can I tell you what I loved yesterday, though? Because
sure.
I know
Lamp.
I do love Lamp.
You love your family. You love God, your country, and your baseball team, which in 2016 had a different name than they do now.
They sure did.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Triggered some people. I don't know.
I did.
All I know is that the Cubs beat the team that was in Cleveland. I don't care what your nickname was.
They beat that Cleveland Indian team.
At least we didn't have to change our nickname.
You didn't.
And then you got hosts on the radio that get confused by it, and they say something that they're used to saying, and then somebody gets triggered, and so they send you an email.
All these things do happen.
Just publish the email. I just
publish it.
Just to screenshot it and send it out there.
Like, here you go.
All right.
Could have the voice guy do the reading of it.
I could. It would be actually really, really good.
This has now turned into one of the greatest teases of people.
I know,
What's
right?
that email say?
What'd you do? What'd you do?
Big fan, Mr. Handley.
Is your family being harmed? Well, yes, they are.
Yeah.
Blink twice.
I didn't feel threatened. We'll say that. As a guy who is a big fan of, first of all, very swift games, because that usually means the pitching is very appeasing and very aesthetically pleasing to the eye. We could have had a little bit more long ball yesterday, but I know there was probably a section of Major League Baseball fans or just baseball fans in general or sports fans that wanted to see more of the long ball. But not only did we see whether it's Tarek Skubal or it's Reagan's, Burns. I want to get to King here in a little bit, but
it was Dalen.
Oh my gosh!
Well, they're one of the rare teams I think ever that has struck out 15 and walked nobody in a playoff game.
That was historical, by the way. The whole way that outs were being getting, you've got in the Royals game, getting out of some jams, Cole Reagans and runners at the corner, but the pitches.
How about the fifth?
Yes,
how about the bottom of the fifth? He had runners at second and third. And Reagan's deals. Yeah. Reagan's, you know what? Cole Reagans, he's a true ace. He reminds me a little bit of Cole Hamels. He's got a little Cole Hamels in him. Like the delivery, the stuff,
and the bender.
Spin.
Yes. Yeah. And that was the thing that I wanted to bring up is between whether it was Reagan's, whether it was Skubal, or whether it was King, their off speed, which I geek out over. And when you see one of my favorite moments
the things that make you get excited are a sinker and a sweeper.
Yes.
Whoa.
Sinker and sweepers, but
know that for future reference, Jimmy.
You would never refer to Kerry Wood and what he did against the Astros on that afternoon in Wrigley as a sweeper. That was just an electric slider, which I still like to refer to the sweeper as a slider because it still has that movement. It's just the sweeper because of what it's covering, the amount of play it's covering. But when you see stuff that's moving more horizontally, the way that you saw not only Kings, but also with what Cole Reagan's with the top shelf curveball, the knuckle curve, when he's spiking that thing, man, I do. I get excited. It's one thing. Hey, 100-mile-an-hour fastball anymore. That's more commonplace now. It's what you have when it comes to the
commonplace.
Guys are running it up more 100 miles an hour than they ever were.
Chapman, Miller, Skeens, and
Clase.
So you got 4 guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
All right. Well, let's say running the radar gun hotter consistently in the upper 90s, 95 plus than what we've seen before.
It's all about the sweeper, the sweeper and the sinker.
Oh my gosh.
Like Bummer last night, who basically kept the Braves in that game, former Husker.
Yep.
He throws a sweeper.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael King's sweeper was nasty.
And then he comes back with a splitting.
Most people have no idea what even a sweeper is, but everybody, that's like the thing of like the overlay of, hey, look at that sweeper.
Yeah.
Now, Michael King could have thrown a fake ball up there and would have been dominant last night for the Padres.
Yeah. When he goes back-to-back strikeouts with the sweeper, but I'll just call it a very electric slider, the electric slide, if you will. But then back with the sinker, the movement in the just, again, I get it. That's like, all right, cool. That there was some good pitching last night, but respect the actual pitches that were thrown in the key moments too. That was from start of the day to the end of the day was awesome. Just absolutely loved that.
We are one win for the Royals away from going back to the Bronx and getting to see George Brett Titanic home runs in the postseason against the Yankees. It'd be the first time, 44 years?
Yes.
It'd be the first time in 44 years. If the Royals win either of the next two games in Baltimore at Camden Yards, where I imagine they will have a small crowd and they'll be very surly today, especially if the Orioles don't get off to a good start. We are a win away from the Yanks and the Royals, and I hope the Royals wear powder blue playing at Yankee Stadium for the first time in 44 years in the postseason.
They have them,
with
too.
AI Keith Jackson and Bob Uecker and AI Howard Cosell.
I was 1 year old when that happened. That's awesome. They need to do that, the all powder blues. They have them.
No, they did a throwback. I think Gossage and Brett. Like Gossage threw out the first pitch and Brett swings at it. It'd be perfect.
Presented by a hemorrhoid cream.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Off and rolling on a Wednesday.
This?
What do you mean, what is this?
96 on Saturday. Good Lord.
Oh, I'm getting to that.
Oh.
Well, here's see, if we had like true sports fans that are weather guys and gals in this town, here's how they would describe the weather that we're going through in this fine community of ours.
Open the pools back.
In the morning, it has the feel of college basketball.
Yeah.
By the afternoon, it has the feel of baseball or early college football
or College World Series.
See, that's the way that you should describe the current weather. If you were a sports fan on the weather, a meteorologist in the town, that's how you describe it.
Yep. It's kind of ridiculous. 96 degrees.
Howling south wind.
Like we've had plenty of 80s.
Stop whining, okay?
96 degrees.
I'm just saying the Huskers are going to have to
Although I do remember a Black Friday game where it was in the 70s.
Yeah.
That was also the Alex Henry game too.
You got to stop whining. You know what? 96 at kickoff. You know what's going to be in Lincoln?
Bring your own hydration.
98. 98 degrees. It'll be warmer than opening day at Memorial Stadium.
But Hawaiian shirt day for you?
No. I wear a Hawaiian shirt. Why would I wear a Hawaiian shirt?
Get the mood going.
I don't know. You're fun.
Yeah.
It's either
guy. You or Jacob.
You're a fun guy.
That's true. It has been the year of Jacob Bigelow.
Only certain people should wear a Hawaiian shirt, and that guy coaches my football team in Kansas City. But we are a day closer to the pretender-contender game between Nebraska and Rutgers. We will have plenty on that because Jay Moore and Brandon Vogel will join us. Also, the big game of the Big Ten this weekend is Iowa and Ohio State. Can Iowa's defense slow down the weapons of Ohio State? As that game is about a 3-touchdown difference, according to Vegas. Chad Lysticko from the Des Moines Register will join us to preview that game. And, of course, it'll be day 2 of playoff baseball, which could include the Royals, the Tigers, the Mets. I might adopt the Mets. They look like they're fun. That was an impressive win yesterday.
And Frankie Lindor did not have one hit in that game either.
Every time I see him, I think of you now.
Frankie?
Yeah.
By the way, does not like to be called Frankie.
He's Francisco, I know.
He likes to be called Francisco, and if you say Frankie in an interview, it's probably the end of that interview.
I wouldn't say that in an interview. I would say Francisco. That's fun to say.
But like, why couldn't you have done that in Cleveland?
He did do that. That's the problem, Gary. He did do that in Cleveland.
We could also have the Padres moving on day 2 of baseball. All of that on the docket as we welcome you in. Now let's talk about the debate last night. So I was multitasking.
It was a different watch.
Well, you know what? So here's the thing, and I'm going to get very political with you all right now, and I don't care if you turn the radio off or whatever, you tweet at me, email me, whatever. I got something to say about the debate last night. Okay. So buckle in. You ready?
I'm ready.
It was nice last night to have that kind of a debate. I'm not here to tell you who won or lost. I only do that with sports. But it was kind of nice to have a debate about policy over rancor. Like where you attack
conversation.
You attack the ideas and not the person. You know, and we all have our ideas of what we want and who we like and all that kind of stuff. And that's your personal preference. But it was kind of nice to have, a debate like that, because whether it be for the mosquito board or the mayor or the president, sometimes we don't get debates like that. But here's what they missed out on. And I was really, really upset about this. And I'm going to insert myself into the debate last night about a topic that came up.
Oh, good. Climate
change.
Okay.
We've had a lot of climate going on in this country. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm not going to call it weather. I'm going to call it climate. The Hurricane Helene in the aftermath has really, really wrecked parts of this country in beautiful areas and have put people in dire straits. But as we talk about climate change, and this is on the heels of something I heard on the debate last night, I don't know why climate change did not come up more, because it needs to be talked about on something you just pointed out, and you did too, Jimmy, about what it's going to be like on Saturday. Do you realize that Nebraska, because Nebraska is smart, Nebraska is really, really smart, and they have gone all in on the climate change and also the sideline change? Do you guys realize that on Saturday, for the first time since Nebraska made the move to the west from the east, that there might be a 35 to 40 degree difference in terms of temperature? Because at kickoff at 3 o'clock, 98 degrees at Memorial Stadium. Plan accordingly, people. If you're going to the game, if you like, hey, man, I got to get into the stadium 90 minutes before kickoff because I want to see the people warm up, pace yourself.
They're already warm.
It's going to be a fat man's weight loss paradise on Saturday. But think about it. Nebraska has already picked up a dub thanks to, I might be stretching it here on climate change. It may be just switching on where the sun is shining and all that kind of stuff in Memorial Stadium. But think about it. For the first time since they made this change, and albeit it's only the fifth game, there will be a drastic difference where Rutgers will get baked. And my weather guys are telling me that it's going to be a hot 98. Not like it's going to be hot. Like there's going to be a lot of pink people walking out of Memorial Stadium because they're not going to think of October. I'm not going to get sunburned. I'm not going to put sunscreen on.
We put it up for the season.
I mean, gingers are going to turn blue. But think about this for a moment. Nebraska is going to be in the shade. Rutgers is going to be in the smack dab heat. Schiano's going to be sweating. You know what? Italians, they sweat. How many?
They'll probably be wearing black too.
How many mom members wear jorts on the sidelines? No, they're decked out in suits. They're going to be sweating through their suits. Nebraska, this is an advantage.
It actually is.
Unfortunately, the people that are on that sideline, and especially up in the seats that are closest to Devaney.
Shout out 600 level.
Yeah. Hydrate.
Be hotter than the UTEP game.
But that's my, because we got to be all encompassing on the show. That's my tie into the debate last night about climate change and weather, is that Saturday.
Well done.
Watch that. Rutgers is going to spend a majority of the game in the sun baking. And they're even going to turn it up. Devaney upstairs is going to go and on the field. But think about this.
The turf temperature up.
On the field. I mean, what are we on the field about? 110? 115?
Oh, yeah, with the turf. Hell yeah. It'll be triple digits.
Yeah, and like Troy Edwards game.
If they have the same thing that the baseball field claims to have, the underground heating system, you could go ahead. You can turn on the underground heating system as well. Make it even hotter if you'd like to. I mean, you have that actually. I have no idea what's underneath their turf and what was supposedly underneath the baseball turf. Can we also thank Jim Harbaugh?
Just in general?
Or for this move. Jim Harbaugh questioned Nebraska on why they would not be on that sideline after last year when that team, when he said his team, on a very hot day, by the way, said that, boy, they were actually pretty comfortable and cool, and they had the shade, and they were really confused. At least Jim Harbaugh was very confused on why Nebraska wouldn't be on that sideline. I think once the old khakis put that out there, officially is like, all right, enough's enough. Matt Rule heard that, message received, switch, and here you go. First real game of the year that advantage, especially given the time of kickoff, that you would have that advantage because the amount of sun at 3 o'clock as opposed to if that game was 11 where you'd be sharing a little bit of that sun. There you go.
Hey.
Now, I don't know if Matt Rule had the Rutgers game on the schedule
That's
of, well,
next-level
it's really
thinking.
going to come in handy when we play Rutgers on October 5th because we know that's when the temperature gets ratcheted up into the 90s. But hey, this is why you're on that
Rule's
sideline.
a smart man. You never know.
I thought Frost was in the COVID year, but then he reverted. But yeah, you need any advantage. You're in a chess match. It's essentially Rule versus Schiano on Saturday, and you need a chess match. And I don't know what choosing a sideline before the year began, and all of a sudden on October 5th it's going to be 98 degrees at kickoff. But I think that would be a pawn. Would that be the pawn? I don't think it'd be the queen. It'd be like a pawn.
Yeah,
move.
yeah. It's just a move.
Yeah,
it's not the move, but it's a move.
But
ooh, then that means the move
hey,
is coming.
Y'all that were watching that vice presidential debate last night, okay, you were thinking about deeper stuff. I was thinking, ooh, climate change. Ding, ding, ding. Nebraska Rutgers sideline. I operate different. I'm sorry.
It is. It's where your mind goes, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Could
Don't
the
ever
UCLA
apologize
game
about
be
that.
80?
Don't ever apologize about that.
I mean, I wonder, the vice presidential debate is going on, and the former president is tweeting about Pete Rose. And I'm like, whoa, okay, you got me. We're talking sports.
But you got to be careful, though, because then if you kind of get into that conversation, you're going to get a quick stick to sports. Saw a lot of people during the debate yesterday that was getting a lot of stick to sports. People, both male and female, that are in sports that thought that they would chime in on the debate, and then they would go ahead and quote tweet somebody coming at them about, I used to like you, but now I don't. Stick to sports.
It was refreshing that we talked about, we attacked ideas, not individuals, and they shook hands at the end.
I look forward to
so
the
we move
podcast.
on. We got, was it 5 weeks from today?
Think so?
Yeah.
5 weeks from today, we'll be discussing sports on the show, I imagine.
According to a robocall that I got on Monday night, we are 36 days away. Yeah.
Okay, so 5 weeks from yesterday.
Yep.
But my biggest takeaway from the vice presidential debate last night, and I was in and out. I mean, I got my climate change in. Is Saturday Night Live is going to have so much content from last night to use on Saturday in their dry open.
Who do they have?
That's great if you're a writer.
Do we know who they have as casting for both Walls and Vance?
Well, I have
Jim Gaffigan.
Jim Gaffigan.
Oh, Gaffigan is doing
Walls.
Walls. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because there was there something this last weekend?
Yeah,
Next
it was
level.
their
Vance
it
could
was
play
their
Vance.
kickoff to their 50th year of SNL.
Right, but because
Jelly Roll was on it. Where were you at,
when
man?
I miss
Jelly
SNL?
Roll.
I knew this, and I didn't
Remember when we
watch.
brought up?
He's the most popular guy with face tattoos since Post Malone and Mike Tyson.
Well, remember when we brought up the joke the sequel to Joker 2, and you said so you're going to end up seeing that in January. Saturday Night Live usually is something that I get to either on bye weeks or on a Sunday, and a lot of Sundays I just by the time we can watch it, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm tired. But I always do make sure if I don't see it like later that night on Saturday, I look at it Sunday. I always got to, especially during an election year, I got to watch Weekend Update.
Watch Weekend Update live. Maybe watch the Open, and then everything else that is good is usually put out on social media.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think you're okay.
Okay. Yeah.
But Weekend Update is a must watch live.
Oh, I already saw clips of it from last weekend.
Yeah. So Saturday Night Live, if I'm a writer and I'm watching last night, I'm like, oh boy, this is. I might not even touch the bases on a home run. I may float around the bases. All right, you have the lineup brought to you by the Roofery's at John Higgins Weather Guard. Chad Leistico from the Des Moines Register on the Hawks. We'll talk Ohio State game coming up in Columbus on Saturday. Jay Moore, fresh off his appearance last night on Big Red Wrap-Up. And then Brandon Vogel from Counter Read. I got some numbers for Brandon to digest that we will discuss when he stops by at 9:40. He stops by with all of you, which you can join us on the 42 Degree The Source hotline, 402-951-1620. Hello to everybody that is joining us early, especially on the stream. We got Rick, we got Negative Mike, we got Jason in there, we got Jared, we got Very Negative Mike.
Very Negative Mike.
I wonder if he's rated to regular Mike. We got Josh the Pirate. Interesting offseason for you. We got Adidas in here. My Adidas. So hello to all of you. Hop in the chat. Let's get emojis and let's get.
I taught him that.
Good discussions. We have had good discussions the last 2 days in the chat. You can get on that on YouTube or wherever you get it. 1620 The Zone TV. You can also get at us like somebody did to Nick, and has just really rattled Nick with an email yesterday that he will read. Actually, when we come back.
Okay.
It's like that could be the update.
Sure.
Why are you so afraid? You are like afraid.
Not at all.
You're afraid to read it.
Not at all. I even
You're
responded.
Dear
Yeah, really?
Mr.
Are you going to read your response?
Sure. It was very short and sweet.
Yes. Yes. And we'll see if Nick is in the right or in the wrong.
Why do you like the movie Major League?
I know my truth.
It is an offensive.
Whoa. Okay, Governor Walls.
I know my truth.
You're going a little religious on me. I'm quoting some Bible verses. Hey, homie.
Corinthians.
I've been to church in a while.
Ezekiel.
The Equitable Bank inbox, where you can send us an email, Gary at 1620thezone.com.
Handley at 1620thezone.com.
Also on the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed. Let's see who is in first this morning. Oh, Sean is in. Happy today.
Sean,
Happy
waking up
today as a
early.
Royals
Yeah.
fan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love Steve's comment on the weather.
He's wondering if we'll get into the real debate. There was a blank show in sports media yesterday that went on that was kind of ugly. Yeah, it was kind of ugly. People like sometimes like to see media guys and gals go at each other, but sometimes it can be uncomfortable. I thought yesterday was a little bit uncomfortable.
Man, some crossover.
The JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed at Gary Sharp 1620
and Nick Handley 1620.
All right, we are off and running. There is Jimmy back in studio with us today, and all of you. We'll get into Nebraska and Rutgers, the chess match between Rule and Schiano. Who do you trust? Choose your fighter now on a Wednesday on 1620 The Zone. All right, good. I almost said Tuesday. Good Wednesday morning, everybody. It is the greatest month sports-wise of the entire year. I don't want to single out the 12 children I have, but I got a special place in my heart for October. All 4 professional sports will be going. We could have a day where all 4 professional sports are playing on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
College football has major conference games. The weather is a banger. And
hoodie and shorts
and we are close to the start of college basketball. College hockey starts.
Yep.
I mean, hey, fight me outside in the parking lot if you have a better sports month than October.
Do real sports fans, if they ever want to name a kid after a month, should they name them October?
I knew a girl named January once.
Ooh, now, so small town Nebraska was dating someone. And, well, people know that my connection to Taylor, Nebraska, up by Burwell.
Yes.
So met a family, and they named their kids after months.
When they were born, I'm assuming.
April, May,
Not
June.
when they were conceived.
Like in,
Ooh.
well,
Think of that.
I don't know.
You can usually pinpoint that.
I don't know how you had your kid, but if you do the math,
I have
it
an
doesn't
idea.
not necessarily 9 months, like
No,
from the
it's not.
day.
No.
Like, you're trying to time it out. Okay, March Madness. What am I? Hey, honey, we got to do it today. I've learned that because I've studied many leather-bound books about it.
Yep.
But they had Augie, they had June,
Augie.
they had May, they had April. Who else did they have?
Was this the Handleys?
Oh, they had a January.
Yeah, shout out June.
All right, January.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my month.
I'm like, geez, it sucks to be January. It's frigid cold. What kind of personality that kid gonna have?
Mm.
But yeah, they introduced
Excuse
him.
me. I was
They
born in
introduced
January.
him.
Thank you very much.
And so I was like, is there a story to this? They're like, no, they're just different. And I'm like, you know what? That's what America is. We have kids to be different.
So if I were to assume that each one of those kids' birthdays was in that month that they were named after, I'd be wrong.
I didn't go that far. You know what? That was one of those conversations.
Is that too personal?
No, that was one of those conversations I really wanted to pull the ripcord. I was like, ooh, this could go on this could go on way too long. Nice person, but I feel like life is being sucked out of me.
Mm.
And so I just kept it moving. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Unless there was just maybe one kid that was named after a month. Then you could ask about that. But if there's multiple ones, then you got to get the story on each one.
I don't know. The parents, man, they didn't have 12 kids. I think it would have been easier to have 12 kids. If you're going to start and you're going to say, hey, let's name our kids after months, you got to have 12.
I just
you can't
want to
just stop with one.
If it's not
or two or 3 or 4 or 5.
If it's not the month that they were born or conceived, I would like to know what the correlation to that name, because if you're going to name them after a month, it's got to have some type of significance. And if it's not those two things, then what is it? Is it how you look at how you personally look at September? Is why you would name a kid September?
I think you got a better shot of like something in sports.
Sure, yeah.
Like, if you celebrated the Cavs and the Warriors, and now you have a LeBron. I mean, that makes more sense than, hey, we had a June.
Right.
Okay. Just saying.
Maybe very important moment in their life in the month of June.
But we do have October baseball. It's game 2 of all 4 series. If you missed it last night, Kansas City, Detroit, the Mets and the Padres all picked up victories. 3 of the 4 were road teams that won. We didn't have many home runs.
Just one.
If you liked home runs, you didn't like yesterday. But if you liked good starting pitching, you liked 3 of the 4 games. So Nick's team does not play until this weekend.
They're waiting.
Correct.
They're waiting.
Yeah.
But
Saturday.
he does not have a lot of people that are hopping on the Cleveland baseball team bandwagon. Unless you forget that they played in the World Series in 2016.
Sure did.
This is a content that needs to be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to read out loud an email that you received yesterday from a discussion that we had on the program on Tuesday, October 1st?
Gladly. This was from Darren. Thank you for
Hello,
listening,
Darren.
by the way, Darren.
Spell it. How's he spelled, Darren?
He is a Daren.
No double R?
No.
Ooh, no
Okay.
double R.
No.
All right.
Says, I was listening to you talking about the MLB playoffs, and you made reference to your, all caps, your Cleveland, quote, Indians. You do realize they changed their name to the Guardians, right? You claim you're a diehard Cleveland fan, but you refuse to accept change from an offensive mascot name to the current less offensive and prideful mascot name is sad. People like you who refuse to accept change during the current climate is a big part of the problem, especially on a sports platform. Get over yourself and your old ways, or quit talking about, quote, your team. I am assuming you're not watching the debate tonight. Just a gut feeling.
Think he's playing 4-quarter pick'em?
Wow. Okay. I mean, thank you for
thank
you for listening and emailing.
Sign up for the VIP thing.
My
There's
response,
probably a disagreement or two in there, but I appreciate the email.
My response was simply this. Thank you, Darren, for listening to the show.
Did you also know, Darren, that my favorite football team is the Redskins?
Oh man, see, good ideas always come after the fact.
Did you also know that I went to Millard South? We were the Indians.
I did actually. I missed another golden opportunity. That was actually true. I'm not a Washington fan, but yes, I did go to Millard South, and we were, when I was there, the Indians.
You must live in Bellevue and support the Chieftains of Bellevue East.
Does he know that I'm a Chicago Blackhawk fan?
Do you home of the Chiefs at a Husker game?
I don't know.
Next time, let's talk about your Florida State Seminoles.
I just simply put, dear Darren, thanks for listening to the show. In reference to the Cleveland Indians, I was referring to the 2016 World Series when they were officially named the Cleveland Indians. In many ways, I still refer to the baseball team as the Cleveland baseball team or the Guardians. I have a tough time with the Guardians because I thought it was kind of a goofy name. As far as changing the name, I was all for it as long as it represented the baseball organization. Once again, thanks for listening.
And go back to calling them the Devil Rays.
Because that was offensive too. Man. So I didn't know, maybe he caught it out of context, but I feel like as long as you're referring to the Cleveland Indians when they were actually the Cleveland Indians, it's okay.
How would you catch that out of context?
I don't know. Because it
My
literally
God, that guy on the radio was championing the Indians.
Yeah, I literally said, I know what we were talking about too.
When's North Dakota here for hockey?
You got screwed. I remember that conversation yesterday. That was pretty deep. I wanted to keep it to Rutgers, Nebraska, and you're like, the Indians? I mean, the stolen bases are up in the major leagues this year.
I'm going to get another email now.
No, I'm probably going to get that email.
Just sign up for the VIP.
Now you are also, sir, part of the problem.
No, I'm not. They're not my baseball team. I call them the Guardians. I call them the Commanders. I call them the Patriots. What are you doing over there?
I do refer to Millard South as the Patriots.
Now I'm going to get an email.
They've been the Patriots since 1999.
Friggin' douche canoer.
That long?
Yeah, sometimes I am.
Well, it is what it is. Can't win them all, though. But again, appreciate the conversation.
Yeah.
By the way,
wait till Darren finds out what my favorite football team is.
Exactly.
In the NFL.
And the chant you guys do during the game. Jeez.
I heard lots of that Saturday, and they weren't even playing.
I would say, by the way, I watched probably a total amount of about 5 to 8 minutes of the debate.
Oh, we're back to the debate?
Well, he said he assumed I wouldn't be watching the debate
last
night. And he said it was just a gut feeling. So I am an uninformed, insensitive sports fan who has a platform to talk sports. And I do it poorly when it comes to talking about the Cleveland Guardians that were once the Cleveland Indians.
Wow, you're describing some people that work in this business in the state.
I just described myself.
All right, Jimmy's got an update coming up in a little bit. Thank you very much, Darren.
Yeah. Yes, Darren. Sometimes we just need a sobering reminder of who we are. And now I know.
We have difference of opinions. I will always say that my Cubs won the World Series against the Guardians, for the record.
You do. Yeah. I remember watching game 2 with you.
Yeah, that was an awkward experience. Because
it was you, me, Shafe. And my wife, who was a lot quiet, but she was actually, she's a big Cubs fan. So, I mean, it was.
Was she there?
Yeah, she was.
That was the fourth date.
Yeah, she was off to the side. No, the 2016, we were already married.
Oh, okay.
That was our first month of marriage, by the way.
Oh,
your wife was at, because we went to the outlets.
We went to
watch
local.
The game.
Yeah.
Your wife was there?
She was there.
How did I not know that?
Well, I think it was
a couple pops.
It was the whole thing was uncomfortable because
I think it was you, Shafe, me, and
the Cleveland.
And
the Cleveland baseball team was not playing well. So
what was their name in 2016? What officially?
The Fighting
Careful.
The Fighting Terry Franconas.
Tito's.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable because your teams were not playing
They were
well.
not playing well.
So you guys didn't say a word to me. And I didn't know if I should cheer or not.
Yeah, you didn't. And I maybe I've never thanked you for that, but you were very humble in victory.
I didn't know your wife was there.
Yeah, she was there.
What was she wearing?
I don't remember. She probably had a Cubs hat on.
Really?
Yeah. She's a diehard. She's from Illinois.
Tell your wife I apologize that not remembering that she was there 8 years ago.
Hey, chances are she's not listening right now. She's probably still sleeping. So
Wow,
how about
morning, Jenny.
How about I just say we never talked about it? Or I could just say, yeah, he remembers. We were talking about when we were at the local. Remember that? Yeah, Gary was talking about, oh yeah, and I remember your wife was there. I'll just,
Did I make her uncomfortable?
No,
Okay.
she was very happy. She was very comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm glad that she's a Cubs fan as a Chicagoan. I'm sorry I did not remember her. I was probably focused on the game.
That was almost 10 years ago.
You guys were focused on what eventually are they going to do to the nickname.
Well, I wanted to know why Trevor Bauer sucked so bad.
Well, where do you want to start?
Well, it started with a drone in that postseason.
People in Mexico are wondering the same thing today. Jay's got an update coming up in a little bit.
This
So
is why I
the
miss this place.
Nebraska-Rutgers game, listening to the coordinators speak yesterday, isn't Saturday? We like movies, so I'm gonna use a movie reference to kind of frame this discussion about what this game is shaping up to be.
Mm-hmm.
Do we expect Bill Murray to walk out onto the field at Memorial Stadium? Isn't Saturday Groundhog Day all over again for the last time Nebraska played at home against Illinois? We had the same discussion 2 weeks ago that Nebraska is touchdown favorite right now. They're 7.5.
Yep.
They're going to play a team that is tough. They're going to play a team that is physical. They're going to play a team that, okay, they have a winning record, but
right.
Aren't we just starting this conversation over again about a home game that was 2 weeks ago? The same style, the same way you're going to have to play, that you're going to have to pull up your pants and strap it on if you're going to beat Rutgers. Didn't we have this discussion 2 weeks ago? Now the question becomes, when you have Groundhog Day, and you saw what happened to Bill Murray, he learned his lesson.
Sure did.
He kept waking up at the same time every day, but then finally it changed. Like this will be lesson learned in a game in which you get a lead, play a team that says, let's be physical, and you forget how the words to Olivia Newton-John's song are. It is. It's like Groundhog Day all over again for the last time you saw Nebraska play at home. And then you get into the debate of, well, Rutgers is better than Illinois, or is Illinois more dynamic offensively? Rutgers just happens to have elements that they do better on defense.
So key phrase is very similar to 2 weeks ago. You're right. Starting with physical, but also the idea
physical. Rest in peace, by the way.
Yeah.
I thought in all these recreations of Greece that she was the best. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue.
You got me thinking that, but okay.
Yeah, you get you get the OG.
Well, yeah.
You can't replicate Olivia Newton-John back in the original Grease.
No.
Even Michelle Pfeiffer in Grease 2 wasn't coming close.
Right, and I'm a big Michelle Pfeiffer fan.
Yeah, I'd still take Olivia Newton-John.
I would too.
She was 4 or 5 games too.
She was fantastic, and John Travolta.
No.
Doesn't really do it for me anymore. But as Danny Zuko,
don't be tinkling on my Grease.
I would never dream of it.
Sorry. So back to Bill Murray and this being Groundhog Day all over again.
A lot of key phrases yesterday when everyone was talking. So I thought of the exact same thing about this. A lot of what Illinois does or did, very similar to what Rutgers is known to do now. No, it's fine.
Keep going.
No, I'll come back to this.
I got to shut my phone off during this show.
What?
Getting text. Sorry.
Good morning, all.
About Greece or?
No.
Okay.
It's about how Rizzo looked like she was 47 in the movie.
I mean, no.
Keep going.
Okay. Oh, God bless our country and your friends.
That was at Maha.
I miss that festival. The things you'll see. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so when Tony White was asked about Calic Manis, and I think it was Evan who asked him the question about, seeing him in a different offense and a different team, and now with what he does at Rutgers, his thoughts on it. And I immediately thought of Altmaier, because of Altmaier was a little bit more turnover prone a year ago, was a little bit more saddled with more responsibility and didn't have as much around him, that probably had to do things that he probably shouldn't have done when it came to decision making, and has figured that part of it out. The way that Tony White talked about Calic Manis, and his stats would also support what Tony White was talking about, is you have to respect the running element. You have to respect him getting out on the edge, so that's a part of it, but he's making better decisions with the football. That's the one thing when he was at Minnesota, you would watch him play, and you're like, just put him in a position to where he has to throw the football. Thought the exact same thing about Luke Altmaier, even though he hadn't turned the football over 2 weeks ago. Thought to myself, if that is a situation where Nebraska can get out in front and you put more emphasis for them to throw, they're playing catch up, that's when you're finally going to see Luke Altmaier revert back to old things. Calic Manis, I shouldn't be as skeptical because of what we saw with Altmaier, but that immediately right there made me think of the comparison between the two quarterbacks. Then there's the physical, they do not make mistakes part of it. A Brett Bielema team, going to be physical. They're not going to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yep, that's same
part thing with Rutgers.
That's part of the Schiano versus Rule.
Yep.
History of Schiano's team, history of Rule's team, whether it's the 23 or the 24, which hasn't made the back-breaking mistakes continuously. The Rutgers not hurting themselves is a big deal. They've only turned the ball over twice. Now, they don't sack the quarterback. They don't tackle you for loss. They're an odd team that the other part of the Schiano versus Rule history in close games, Rutgers finds a way to win close games.
Yep.
And I think another factor that needs to be discussed a lot is you cannot allow Rutgers to get a lead in this game.
Yeah.
Because Rutgers has a style where they will squeeze the life out of a game and they will run the football. They will shorten the game.
Yep.
But when they are behind, who do you have more faith in on Saturday if they have to chase points? Rutgers or Nebraska? Now, you don't want to fall behind by 2 scores, even though Patrick Mahomes, his son, could replicate what Patrick Mahomes does, that he's perfect when he is exactly behind by 10 points. Okay? Just want to point that out.
Comfortable.
It's going to tick off Darren because I'm talking about the Chiefs. But who do you have more faith in if you have to chase points? That's why the first quarter under I would go with. But if Nebraska gets a lead, you have to expand the lead. And if they fall behind, that plays into the hands of Rutgers, who will run the ball. And then when they get to the fourth quarter, they have one of the best running backs in college football, and especially in the Big Ten, who 40% of his yards are in the fourth quarter. And he's a bowling ball.
And this is on a Wednesday. This is where I'm confident in lessons learned too, because
life or football?
Well, I probably should be both, but football in this instance, that there is, and we talked a little bit about this going into the Illinois game. There was that moment where Nebraska got extremely embarrassed by the eventual national champion Michigan. They practiced, they got after it that Sunday, we all know. And then they went out that Friday night and they took the Brett Bielema game to Champaign, and they, as we talked about, they out-Illinois'd in that game. They won that game handily. They were physical. They were the more physical team. Even in a game where they had mistakes, it didn't matter because they always were able to overcome that. I still think there was a little bit of that with some of the similar personnel, including the quarterback, that was in their mind. That's not to say that this coaching staff overlooked or underprepared for Illinois, but I do think that there was a little bit of that. I think it's
called lesson learned.
Absolutely. I think it's just a little bit of human nature when it comes to a team that you feel overly confident again, that you're going to have the answers, especially at home. They haven't played this Rutgers team. They haven't seen Kamenon guy. They haven't seen Samuel Brown. They've seen Athan Kalikamannis, but they've seen him in a different uniform too. And they did have that example now against Illinois. This sounds crazy to think about, especially the way Monangai has played.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Nebraska defensively has a very, very good game against Kamanungai. I think they do very well in this game because of what they experienced against Illinois. Now, the thing that still does concern me is you are selling out on number 5. You are all in on him. How big of a factor will Athan Kaliakmanis be when it comes to his ability to extend or even to handle the football? That's something entirely different. But as far as Nebraska's matchup against Monungai, I think they neutralize them because of what they've experienced the last couple of weeks.
Leaky yardage, though.
Mm-hmm.
There's leaky yardage. 5'10".
Major emphasis. Major emphasis of being able to limit that too. Being able to swarm.
I thought there was on that before Purdue. There was still leaky yardage.
But against Purdue,
they had leaky yardage.
Not as much, though.
No, but they still had leaky yardage.
But I don't think as much. And I think that's something that's continuing to improve.
They were better defensively, there is no doubt. But leaky yardage. Hidden yardage, whether it be in the return game or yards after contact, will be huge in a game that'll be played in a phone booth. You got to find a way to find the hidden yardage. Either don't allow a guy to get 2 or 3 or fall forward for another 4, or in the return game.
Yeah.
All right. Jimmy's got an update coming up next. More on the matchup between Nebraska and Rutgers. Also, y'all watched a pretty important game on Saturday night. I mean, a lot of y'all watched that game. Record numbers on the boob tube between Alabama and Georgia that we will discuss on a bigger meaning for college football moving forward. That's all to come. Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
I don't know what's happened to this computer since I've been gone. It seems fine. Anyway, Ava Martin, no assists, Kendra Wade all had double-doubles. All right, points and rebounds to lead Creighton. Number 6 in the country, volleyball, to a 3-1 win over Marquette last night in front of a national television audience on FS1. 25-20, 25-18, 23-25, 25-12. Creighton now 12-2 on the year, closing in on home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They're 3-0 in Big East play after the 5th straight victory. Amy Williams, Alexis Markowski, and Natalie Potts will represent the Huskers in Big Ten women's basketball media today in Chicago. Playoff baseball, best damn month of the year. Tigers beat the Astros 3-1. The champions of the AOS will be eliminated this afternoon. And it's 2014 all over again as the Royals beat the Orioles 1-0. And it's October, which means the Brewers are making their annual cameo in the postseason for a couple games. They lose to the Metropolitans 8-4. They'll be eliminated today. And the Padres beat the Braves 4-0. Game 2's today. Love it. Starts at 1:30, 2 hours staggered start times for everybody so that everybody can take in all the baseball. Football, the Raiders have informed other NFL teams they would consider trading Devontae Adams for a package that would include a second-round draft pick and additional compensation. Adams, who was acquired by the Raiders in a trade with the Packers for the first and second-round draft picks in March of 22, missed his first game as a member of the Raiders on Sunday with a hamstring injury suffered in practice on Thursday, and they actually had a rare non-loss. The Cowboys are putting defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence on the injured reserve list because of a Liz Frank injury. At least it's not a Lisa Frank injury to his right foot, and they have signed defensive end KJ Henry off the Bengals practice squad. Anyway, Cowboy season's over. He's expected to need 4 to 8 weeks to recover from the injury he suffered in the third quarter of last week's win against the Giants. He'll not require surgery. The Cowboys are preparing to play without edge rusher Micah Parsons this week because of a high left ankle sprain. Yay! Texas State's talks with the Mountain West Conference have ended, with the school informing the Fun Belt that it won't be leaving after the Bobcats program received a verbal offer over the weekend. At the time of the Mountain West offer, the Pac-12 had also expressed interest in the Bobcats as San Marcos, Texas, a Pac-10 hotbed of all. People do forget this. Though an offer had not yet materialized as a member of the Sun Belt, the exit fee for the Bobcats to make the league change is expected to be around $5 million. UTEP has officially joined the Mountain West, where they should have been all along. They were once members of the original WAC. The league announced this yesterday. The Miners will be returning to some familiar conference foes for the 26-27 academic year. They had been in deep discussions with the Mountain West in recent days as Conference USA officials were notified of the intent to leave the league. The Pac-12 is adding Gonzaga as a member in all sports. The school plays starting in July of 2026. Gonzaga brings their basketball tradition to the refurbished, that's what they want to call it, Pac-12, as the Zags have reached the round of 16 9 consecutive times. Talks intensified over the past 3 days. Gonzaga brings strong media value. Oh, that's huge Spokane media market from a basketball perspective as one of the sport's top brands and most consistent winners. The Bulldogs have reached every men's NCAA tournament that has been played since 1999. They didn't make it in 2020 because there was no tournament. A streak of 25 straight years, and then people started fighting about it on Twitter because that's what we do.
And I was actually kind of had a little bit of joy in when it gets petty to the point that you have to bring up a shtick that one person has when it comes to wishing coaches happy birthdays.
Yeah. Nicole Auerbach and Brett McMurphy should fight, and they should have a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was ugly yesterday. They had a feud going over the Gonzaga reporting and then back and forth about Mel Tucker. And I mean, it wasn't like joking. It was like nasty.
Yeah.
And then going back
lots of deleted tweets, though.
Yes. Well, and then I do appreciate some of the local recruiting sites. I believe it might have been one of the Michigan State sites that got in on it when it went back to the past tweet about the Mel Tucker firing being either official or not from where this whole thing started a year ago. I don't know if it was Spartan Nation, so I'm just going to hold off, but it was one of the Michigan State sites that said that is true, and we were the first to report it. So people were having some fun with it too on the outside looking in, weighing in.
But it was like uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because they were taking shots at each other, and Nicole Auerbach and Brett McMurphy are well known. I think people from the outside get excited when you have national figures, whether it be radio, TV, or print, or Weber's feud. We haven't had a good media feud around here in a while. Where there is just pure, let's get after it. Maybe we need that. Jimmy, you're a lover, not a fighter, but why don't you start something with somebody? Why don't you go after somebody in Lincoln?
I don't know anybody in Lincoln. Oh, that's Steve Sipple. See, I can't even say with a straight face. It's Sip.
We'll just go after a producer. Just go after a producer.
Okay, find me one. I don't know them.
Oh, I know a really good one. You know him too. Elijah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Elijah Herbal.
I don't know who this guy is, but
yeah, you don't want to tug on his cape.
Elijah's good.
He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
See, I can't be me.
We haven't.
Nick's kicking our ass in the pick'em. Let's go after him.
We haven't had a good Nebraska media feud in a while. Now we had one internally here at the Zone.
Oh,
young Josh and Damon.
Yeah.
Yes, even I know about that.
But that was in the early tenure of
and it's
of
infancy.
DB here with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't have.
Oh yeah, because that was after a game that it feels like it was forever ago too. McNeese State, right?
Yeah.
Even I heard about that when I was elsewhere.
Yeah, so we haven't had a good media feud. Maybe somebody from the World Herald. Let's just get maybe John Walker and Wilson Moore need to fight.
There we go.
They're on a podcast together, but they need to fight. Yeah.
Something is said about one of the teams, one of the beats, and they're like, whoa, you're way off on
Here's
that.
what would be the fight. So if they're going to have a doubleheader on the 22nd of November or not, one reports it, the other goes, well, it's still working out the logistics.
So you're basically doing an hour back, and Brett McMurphy won.
God, we are so soft here in the media.
I just want to know who Nebraska fans were cheering for yesterday if you were reading this. Because at one point in the last
Which one didn't want Nebraska to play in the COVID year?
Exactly.
That's how we choose our favorites.
Yeah. And then one of them, of course, with all of the scheduling issues and then reporting that there was a actual investigation on Scott Frost with the illegal practices during COVID. That was a Brett McMurphy thing. And people were like, oh, come on, Brett, mind your own business.
But weren't we excited when Brett McMurphy reported because he was told by the head Brett McMurphy reported about the Oklahoma thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about with the scheduling thing. And then the practice as well, that was all McMurphy reporting. And people were like, oh, this can't take
Full
this
question.
guy for
What
his
was
word.
a better debate yesterday? McMurphy against Auerbach or Vance against Walls?
I probably paid more attention to the Auerbach and Walls one. Sorry, Darren.
On a different note, Grim Reaper out there, wherever you are, you know what? How about taking a break? Yesterday, a guy that every time that he has appeared on a television series or a movie, I'm going to watch. And John Amos, it was announced that he'd passed away. He'd actually passed away about 6 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about an embargo.
Yeah.
Then it was announced yesterday. So John Amos, who has played a variety of roles,
damn good in all of them.
And here, there's Roots, which, let's see, James Earl Jones, Louis Gossett, O.J., John Amos have all passed away. I think John Amos was the last living person off of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. If I'm Arsenio Hall, I'm looking around. But seriously, Grim Reaper needs to take some time off.
Yeah.
But John Amos was fantastic. In my household, my mom and dad loved Good Times.
Yeah.
And I watched the entire Good Times when I was a little bit older. But I remember it was like the first non-cartoon show that I had interest in.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Good Times. I think it was a great show that unfortunately John Amos got into, and he wasn't afraid to tell directors or producers what the deal was. So he kind of got fired off of Good Times, and then he died. And that's the famous scene of his wife, damn, which is one of the more powerful scenes in television. But he was incredible on Good Times. And then, as you know, he had Coming to America. He was Big Mick. And then I think another great role, and two guys who unfortunately we've lost, John Spencer on West Wing. Remember when he was Admiral Fitzwallace?
Yep.
He was great on the West Wing. He commanded the screen,
Also
but
he
wasn't like the number one guy. Yeah, he never won an Emmy, but he had so many important roles, and he played the character well. And when I heard that yesterday, and he was one of those guys I thought, you'd heard word like 6 weeks ago that he had died in like a car crash?
Mm-hmm.
And then it came out yesterday, and Man,
Yeah.
He played football at Colorado State.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a badass.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
And that's just so it's been a rough little stretch here for celebrities. They say it happens in 3.
I think we're past 3 now.
Yeah.
He was also he was also in Uncut Gems.
So I've never seen Uncut Gems. I never ended up seeing that. But first time I ever saw him was as Cleo McDowell. One of the great roles. And he was in Coming to America 2, which was all bad. Coming to America 2 was just not good. But he was also in that one too. You mentioned Die Hard 2, I remember. And that was what pissed me off more than anything about Die Hard 2 is like, Cleo McDowell? You're the bad guy now? You're supposed to be the good guy.
Now I kind of want to root for you.
I was a big, still in all of the Eddie Murphy roles and the comedies that he's done, one of the best roles was Cleo McDowell. The Big Mac. We got the Big Mac. Oh, yeah. And then...
What is that? I'm going to break my foot off in your royal
your
ass.
royal ass, yes. And the fact that, James Earl Jones and Amos in that movie together, and they both, which was kind of cool, is, again, we can say all kinds of bad things about Coming to America, both of them, some of our lasting images of them in that dumpster fire of a movie.
Yeah, man, we are losing some bona fide icons this season for sure.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember, so... you guys remember from Good Times, Jimmy Walker. Dynamite. Who would go on to be, more famously, a news talk show host in Omaha, Nebraska. Neil Nelkin hired Jimmy Walker.
Wait, you did tell me this when I first started here. I thought you were pulling my leg.
So there was a stretch where Jimmy Walker was a talk show host on K-Car.
Really?
And he had John Amos on one time.
Oh, my gosh.
It was a great conversation.
Really?
Of moments behind the scenes. Like, I don't think everybody got along on that show.
When was he on?
He was early 2000s.
Really?
Oh.
Wow.
It was a wild show, man. Huh. He'd go. And he was, before PJ Fleck had this moniker, Jimmy Walker would give the phone numbers for the show, and he'd go, get in the boat and start rowing. Let's talk.
That's crazy. I never knew that. How long was he here for?
He wasn't here very long.
Okay.
Because he
let's start.
I think he got a gig. Who got back into acting.
Okay.
Like he was between it. I don't know, I think he missed some time. They had to go shoot an episode on Scrubs or something.
Oh shoot.
Time and place.
Very negative. Mike brings up, and this is a whole, if you know, Beastmaster. Oh my gosh. Old Beastmaster. This was thriving during the Conan the Barbarian days. So you had basically not quite as good, but okay. Was it Mark Singer? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Mark Singer. Yeah, I forgot.
Well done.
Amos was in
on late
Beastmaster.
At night on USA.
Josh did Pirate with one.
Elvira usually was introducing them.
Now, it wasn't John Amos who said that, but yes, another great line from Coming to America. That ain't nothing but Ultra Perm.
Jeff says about Jimmy Walker's time there at your company, being on K-Car, because he was still doing stand-up. So he'd do stand-up like on the weekends, and then he'd come back in Omaha and do his show. He one day got into an argument with somebody on the air if he was a pseudo-intellectual or not.
Oh, geez. Do we have old audio of that?
I don't know. He also, this person must have listened to a show. He goes, yeah, the only black music in Omaha is Clint Black.
Great. Now I got Better Man stuck in my head.
I think he was maybe here. He was on air for like a year.
Okay.
Maybe 2 years.
And K-Car is what now?
That's what Coil is.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
1290.
Steve Brown, the legendary Steve Brown, was the morning, or the not
See,
midday,
Steve Brown.
late morning talk show host. Distinctive voice.
Yep.
Super nice guy. And
People forget that.
And then they had Jimmy Walker. I think Jimmy was in the afternoons.
Gosh, they would have been in the building at the same time, I believe, but wasn't Pavelka here then too? Because Pavelka would have been doing mornings on K-Car.
In the late 90s?
No, this was...
Jimmy Walker was
early
like
2000s.
98.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, because I thought you said early 2000s. I was like, well, I know KP was here around that time doing mornings too on K-Car.
No, you had Jimmy Walker in the Rocket.
Oh.
in the building at the same time.
Rocket in the morning.
Chet
It was
Steadman.
right before 1620 The Zone was birthed.
Yep. Which we celebrate 25 years.
All right. Thanks, Jimmy, for the update. Coming up at the top of the hour, we'll talk some Iowa, Ohio State. Big game of the Big Ten this weekend. More fallout from Purdue. I guess it's not fallout after a win. But we'll get Jay's thoughts, Brandon's thoughts on what happened on Saturday and what needs to happen this Saturday. Nebraska's a 7.5-point favorite. Midweek check. You got to put your mortgage down. You can't say pass. Plus 7.5 or minus 7.5. Midweek check. I'm not going to hold you to it, but you got to put your mortgage down.
Coming back and doing this, or we're doing
No, we're doing it right now.
Purdue. I'm Rutgers plus the points.
I wouldn't touch that. It's going to be a tension convention.
You have to, though.
You have to.
You
Well, no, I know. I'm saying, but yes, Rutgers.
Are you guys doing it because there's a hook to it?
No, I just don't. I think 7.5 is a lot for anybody.
No, I see this game. Well, I would talk
That's
about
a
it
three-point
too,
game.
but I see this game where Nebraska is holding them off, and it becomes a 5-4 point, maybe 3-point game.
Yeah, 3-point game, and especially given what you said in the first segment, Rutgers is going to wear down the fourth quarter.
I think this is a low-scoring game where Rutgers makes it uncomfortable in the fourth, and Nebraska holds on.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see if you feel that way when we get to Friday. Not saying you're right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Just that's 7.5. Interesting with a little hook there. Touchdown and a hook.
Damn, I already just claimed who I think's going to win, too.
That's all still to come on Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
It's the greatest time of the year. Good kickoff is here, and football is officially back with Underdog Fantasy. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite players' stats, i.e. touchdowns, passing yards, more, anything that they get on stats. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code ZONE, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code ZONE, to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 19 in Nebraska and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
All right, good morning, everybody. On the Wednesday, even to those people out there that eat a straight peanut butter sandwich without any jelly, I'm okay with you today.
They exist.
Other people we got issues with. I got some things we have to discuss as we welcome back into Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Darren responded to you?
No, but remember, I got this email yesterday. It was late afternoon, so I think he might be a podcast
listener.
Yeah.
So have him call into the show.
Yeah.
Would you like me to respond on the response and say, please call into the show?
You think Darren's one of those guys that chooses apple over pumpkin this time of the year?
Yes.
This will be a big weekend for the apple orchards.
96
the pumpkin,
degrees.
Yeah. People will be out,
Man,
especially if your team doesn't play till Monday night.
that just sounds
Hint,
very
hint.
miserable if it's in the 90s and you're trying to pick pumpkins. Or I'm sorry,
Hey,
pumpkins or apples.
that's how I grew
You're
up.
doing any of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's true. But once it gets to October here, I start thinking of, hey,
You picked them in the
on that
air-conditioned
Sunday,
grocery store.
or if the Bears are playing that NBC game, or in 2 weeks when they play the early morning game, the London game, that you usually start thinking about Nebraska City. I'm sorry, but I'm not really feeling going to look at apples or pumpkins when it's above 90.
Yeah, so we get
Don't think.
the London game this week is Aaron Drama and the Vikings.
Yes.
Will Devontae Adams be in New York playing for the Jets by the time they leave for London?
I would like to think now that is an open thing that somebody tries to move quickly on it would be the New York Jets, but I'm still skeptical that this is going to happen. What about the Cowboys? What about Jimmy's Cowboys?
I
What
can't
about 'em? Not
afford
gonna
him.
do anything.
Now his contract.
Jeff Saturday says they should.
His contract the next couple of years is going to be a bundle.
Jared Jones isn't Jeff Saturday.
I like these people that are saying, well, maybe they'll trade him to the Chiefs because the Chiefs need a wide receiver. I mean, the Raiders are struggling, okay, and they're right now a dysfunctional organization. They're not trading Devontae Adams to Kansas City.
Yeah.
But if they'd like to, I mean, I don't know if the Chiefs really need Devontae Adams. Who would you take straight up? And you're just taking a wide receiver. Let's say Baker Mayfield is throwing to him. The one thing about Devontae Adams, and remember, he chose the Raiders, 6 different quarterbacks that they've had.
He hadn't been there 6 years.
Raiders are a mess, okay, with the head coach and the quarterback decision. Mike Evans or Devontae Adams, straight up.
Devontae Adams.
I'm going to go with Mike Evans.
I'm taking Devontae Adams.
Mike's just consistent.
Absolute matchup nightmare playmaker. And in my particular situation, makes, I think, quarterbacks that aren't necessarily bad, but young or a little bit green can do a lot of things to help them out in the confidence. So also, I believe that would elevate young Caleb Williams' play. So yes, give me Devontae Adams.
I think in this either wide receiver, Evans has a higher floor, Adams has a higher ceiling, but Devontae Adams, who is in his feels, and I would get that if you were playing with Aiden O'Connell throwing you the football when you used to have Aaron Rodgers throwing the football, but you made a choice and you got paid and you got a Taco Bell in your house.
Speaking of the cradle.
I mean, how cool is that to get a Taco Bell in your house?
It's a great commercial.
Some people would like a pinball machine. He got a Taco Bell in his house. I think that's cooler than having a pinball machine or air hockey in your house or bubble hockey. But
what about a golf simulator?
Whataburger.
I think having a Taco Bell whenever you can. Whenever you can just go downstairs and go get yourself a taco.
Bill Snyder,
a chalupa,
it's heaven.
Anything like that. I think that's better than going around in a golf simulator. Now, if you told me golden tea, then we might be talking. But so Devontae Adams, though, I mean, there are not many times that Mike Evans in his career is just like taking weeks off.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams has gone through stretches with the Raiders where you're not really sure is 17 still on the field. But I get it. He can be upset. I mean, they haven't done him right in Oakland, Las Vegas. I'm going to get an email from Darren.
LA.
Because he has he has the most touchdowns of a wide receiver in the last 2 years, 23. But he's played with 6 different quarterbacks.
Yeah. And I would agree with the upside part of it, but there is that reliability. But I also think that, I mean, it's not like Mike Evans has had awful quarterbacks since he's been there too. I mean, hey, Baker's balling right now too. Baker's absolutely.
I don't know.
Balling
this argument where you're going, I might insert Malik Neighbors. Can a wide receiver be great without a good quarterback? And could a wide receiver elevate a quarterback?
Yeah, see,
more than vice versa.
I
think Mike Evans may have really helped Baker Mayfield.
You can make that argument, sure. And this isn't to say like I think Mike Evans is a bum by any means, but
I think you did.
Okay, all right, fine. Mike Evans, you're a bum.
What do you got about with him and his buddy Petaway?
Petaway, and yeah, I mean we claim him as one of ours because he spent a basketball evening here.
By the way, Mike Evans got recognized more at a Nebraska basketball game than Derek White got recognized at the Colorado-Nebraska football game.
I believe that.
I was like, I can't believe people don't know that's Derek White.
Yeah.
The guy won an NBA championship and a gold medal in the last couple of months, and Derek White's just walking on the sidelines like he is some...
With Baylor Shireman, too, so you...
People recognize Baylor.
Yeah.
They're like, who's the guy with you?
It's a Spurs legend.
You're right.
So Derek White, one quick note on Derek White. So Derek White did go on a podcast like 2 weeks ago, and someone asked him about his experience in Lincoln. He said it was really, really cool. He said all the nice things, but his alma mater didn't win. But he was standing outside the Colorado locker room outside of South Stadium, and I guess that's where he got recognized, and people were giving him the business.
Oh, come on now.
I mean, we got a lot of Sixer fans and Knicks fans.
Why do they got to hate the Celtics? But real quickly on the Devontae Adams part of it, the big play threat, and when there's certain guys that when they are just, and you don't maybe see this as much with wide receivers. Okay, tie back locally when Trey Palmer is uncoverable in a game and you're seeing them go off. I don't feel like Mike Evans has that type of ability, but what that can do to a quarterback, especially you brought up, can a wide receiver elevate? And I know you're talking about Mike Evans to Baker Mayfield, but I also think as long as Devontae Adams is on the same page and believes in a young or inexperienced quarterback, then I think that elevates it even more because I think that's the one thing when you talk about guys that are not maybe as motivated because of the quarterback that they're playing with or the organization that they're a part of. And maybe the Bears would be a bad example of that. But just on the whole, I think that is going to give your young quarterback the most confidence right there. So I'm still taking Devontae Adams. Respect to Mike Evans. God, I feel like he's been doing it forever now.
And Mike Evans is actually younger than Devontae Adams.
Is he really?
Yeah, Devontae Adams in December will be 32.
Man,
I remember being 32.
I would have said Mike Evans absolutely a year or two older than Devontae
speaking
Adams.
of Nebraska basketball, we expect the unofficial media poll to come out today because Big Ten Media Days, the women's go around is today. But it would seem odd without Caitlin Clark. I'm surprised they're still having it.
Could she be an analyst? Her season's over?
No. I don't know what. She's still in Indianapolis. She showed up at the Colts game the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And then the men's is tomorrow, but the official Big Ten basketball top 18 will come out later today.
And players to watch.
Boy, this is going to be I think this is going to be a wide open year in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
There are not a lot of names you recognize right away on players to watch. A lot of like secondary, third option guys on teams last year all of a sudden are the number one option.
Mm-hmm.
This will not be a league that is just star-studded. They forgot about Bryce Williams, but that's okay because most national people think it was just Hoiberg and Casey were running Nebraska basketball last year. They're going to find out pretty quick that Bryce Williams can ball, but he wasn't even mentioned. I mean, but I think most national people think that only Casey played.
You said Casey. Hoiberg too. I know you meant Fred, but I also thought, man, you thought it was all about Sam and Casey, huh?
Kobe and Shaq of their time.
Andy Katz is going to be surprised. He was like, hey, where'd Casey go? I thought it was just, I thought it was Casey beat Purdue. I mean, I was a little surprised that Bryce Williams was not mentioned, but I think Nebraska will probably be in the range of 11-12 preseason in this poll. The whole goal is to get to 10. You get to 10 wins in the Big Ten, which my math teacher, John Howell, or Mr. Howell, sorry. All
right, Elmer.
He was, he was an East Coast guy.
Oh, okay. So you did that on purpose.
Yes.
I thought it was just like a little slip.
10-10. You'd take that in the Big Ten, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Get to 10. That's the whole goal, is to get to 10.
They were 4 games above 500 in the Big Ten last year, and they finished as tied for the number 3 seed.
Yeah, I think they'll be preseason 12. That sounds about right, considering there's a lot to like if you've been following Nebraska basketball and the building of the roster for the 24-25 season. But if you're not covering it every day, you probably just look at pieces and go, are we having a flea market in Lincoln?
What would they?
But they have more depth. They have more front line. They're going to be better on a front line. I still think the way others look at Nebraska basketball, they'll stay, they're 12th because Tominaga is not here. Jawan Gary and Bryce Williams are still here.
Well, and remember how streaky Casey was last year compared to the previous year too. What was were they 11th last year preseason?
Yeah, I think they got.
Was it
I
11th?
think they got out of the bottom.
Yeah, I couldn't remember where
the league is wide open. I mean,
Yeah.
UCLA, Indiana, Illinois is going to be good, but not a lot of like star power. That's why I tell you who will be a star in this league, and people will know him. We know him. William Kyle III at UCLA is going to have a monster season,
and that game being in Lincoln too should be kind of cool as well.
You think they'll boo him? Will he get the Ali Batenhorst treatment, even though he never played at Nebraska? Or will he get the Chucky Hepburn treatment? They're like, thank God Fiddler's not playing in Lincoln this year.
Man,
all those Bellevue West guys.
That's a great question.
Poll question.
Today I want to say that he'll be more of a warm welcome.
Question. Does Nebraska Athletics hate Bellevue West? They won't let Kalen play quarterback. Xavier Betts got run off. Jalen Bradley got run off. They didn't recruit Javon Ducker. They should have recruited AJ Forbes. They didn't. That was such a miss by Nebraska, by the way. That's on a side note. They don't recruit any of their basketball players. Jaden Jackson, go to Brookings.
Okay, I'm going to say they do not boo.
Wait a minute. I have to stop here because I just remembered something. Do they hate all Bellevue West athletes except for Cade Povich?
Well, remember, he was missed initially.
Why aren't you playing McMorrison Hall?
That's true. Yes. He was initially missed.
Hey,
Cade Povich was.
Little side note. Those two guys got off to a rough start in the adapting to Division I college football. I've heard better reports of late of those two from Bell West.
That is a good thing.
Don't put that poll question up because we don't need that. But it is something to consider. Talk amongst your friends at lunch today when you're down at the DJ's off of Cornhusker.
There you go.
Little plug there.
What about
Trying
Stella's?
to help you.
What about Stella's?
Everybody goes to Stella's. I mean, we got to mix it up. Like everybody, hey, go to Stella's.
So it's just Stella's or DJ's dugout.
Why not just go to
nothing in between?
Just go to Chick-fil-A off 75. That's Bellevue.
Well,
all right.
New Chick-fil-A below. I'm going to say it's the reason I'm going to say it's not as much booing or as the Chucky Hepburn treatment is because something about Wisconsin as opposed to UCLA. That's what I'm going to say.
I'm going to say it's the basketball crowd compared to the volleyball crowd.
Well, there is that. I'm not going to say they're going to throw flowers at him or you're not going to see Bryce Williams during the starting five go over and give him like a teddy bear or anything.
Hug him?
Yes.
Like, who are you?
Right. Like I was just told I'm supposed to do this.
Those guys did, though. They had a couple of runs up here in Omaha this summer. But watch out for Bill Kyle the Jr. Or Bill Kyle the Third, excuse me.
Bill Kyle the Jr.
I called him Bill one time because Frankie goes, hey, call him Bill and see what his reaction is.
What was his reaction?
He's a nice kid. He was like, oh, hey.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, he's
getting it triggered.
He's gonna be really, really good.
I like someone called Billie Eilish.
And if you missed it, Frankie, they took an international trip. Frankie was the leading scorer. So
it's gonna work out for him.
But that game is he's in East Lansing.
Yep, you don't have to worry about that.
All right, 42 past the hour. Quick break to come. At the top of the hour, we'll talk some Iowa football. Does Iowa like Bellevue West kids better than Nebraska? No, because you know what?
One guy ran off.
Yeah, Keegan Johnson got run out of Iowa. Screw you, Iowa, with Bellevue West kids. Stay out of our town. All right.
Remember the talk about Keegan Johnson too when he was at Iowa. Oh gosh, you could bring it up to Chad Leistico. I remember talking to Chad about Keegan Johnson. Oh, they were huge fans of him. Thought he was going to be just amazing there. Didn't work out. So clearly, Kirk Ferentz does not like Bellevue West as well.
You know who likes Bellevue West but can't get anything done at Bellevue West? PJ Fleck.
Oh,
you try, but sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Just keep trying then.
Mornings on Sharp and Handley, 1620 The Zone. All right, Chad Leistico coming up at the top of the hour from the Des Moines Register. Iowa and Ohio State this weekend in Columbus, where Ohio State is about a 3-touchdown favorite ahead of their trip to Eugene, Oregon.
The big one. This is why we have the 12th circled, not because of the bye week, by the way, too. This was one of the main things.
October 12th is a great day in college football with a lot of great matchups, just like December 14th in college basketball is maybe one of the greatest single days of basketball. December 14th.
Is that Nebraska? No, because Nebraska Creighton's in November.
Creighton plays at Alabama that day.
That's right. Okay.
There are loaded games. From the time you get up to the time you go to bed. You're not going to do anything else except watch basketball on December 14th.
When is the Kansas game again?
December 4th.
That's right. Okay.
Sure, it'll be at 9 o'clock.
Nebraska. Well, for Creighton, that is. Nebraska, then the Kansas, then the Alabama game. Yes. October 12th, by the way, too. The Penn State USC game, much more on my radar than it would have been maybe a week ago because I like me some USC right now.
I like me some Penn State offense.
Even with the loss to Michigan. Well, yes, you would.
I cry weekly.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Numb my pain.
You got basketball and Hunter Dickinson.
No.
Okay.
No. Never say that to a Texan.
Well, all right then.
I mean, yes, we have them, but no.
Kansas will be what in basketball this year?
Good.
Okay. But what
Nebraska
level
will be what this winter?
National championship level?
Yeah. Basketball doesn't start for another 5 weeks, boys.
No.
Back to football.
Thank you.
12 million people watched Alabama, Georgia, the most that have watched a college football game since 2017. Brands matter, matchups matter, scheduling matters. It also points out, because this game was on ABC with the new SEC contract, what in the hell was CBS thinking? Why would CBS allow the SEC to leave the 2:30 window?
Mm-hmm.
That was golden for them. That game would have been played at 2:30.
Yeah.
It would have done monster numbers on CBS. CBS for the longest time was getting a steal with the amount of money that they were not really paying. They should have been paying a lot more, but they signed a deal before the SEC blew up. But I great for the Big Ten because the Big Ten on CBS actually starts kind of now looks like it. Oh, okay, it fits.
That theme.
But I don't know why CBS gave up the SEC. But ESPN gets the SEC, and they get a big matchup like that does monster numbers. I also wonder, because this has been a battle between ESPN and Fox, like Game Day is having its best year ever. McAfee and Saban have changed the game on pregame shows.
Yeah.
The Fox pregame show, the impact of Urban Meyer is not there like it used to be. It has been washed out by Saban. And then you add the audience that likes the bro,
the McAfee,
and McAfee comes in, and people are like, okay, let's watch it. Because Game Day is doing big numbers. And I always look, like, if Nebraska, Indiana has a chance to have big noon there, Indiana will be unbeaten if they beat Northwestern. Nebraska will have one loss. I think Nebraska will be ranked if they win this weekend. And there'll be a huge buildup for that game, and I think that game will be 11 a.m. Fox will take it.
Yep.
Big noon will be there. But like the next time that a pregame show comes to Lincoln, are you getting more excited in the current lineup to have Game Day or Fox here?
I think it's Game Day, and I would not have said that a year ago.
I don't even think it's a hesitation.
Yeah.
You'd rather have Game Day in terms of what it brings.
Young's wants McAfee
and Saban
yeah.
on your
Olds
campus.
Saban?
Well,
and the ability to say hello to Desmond Howard.
That's why I think people would actually relish the opportunity, but I think initially would say, because of Desmond Howard. But yes, the fact that you've got two guys, which again, the Pat McAfee thing is an acquired taste, but he has a huge, huge following. And then Nick Saban has been outstanding. And a lot of the Nick Saban appeal is very similar to the Bill Belichick of the Manning cast too, of a guy that you always knew to be very, very rigid, didn't say much. And now all of a sudden they're out of the game as a coach, and you get not only their expertise on it, but you also get more of their personality that you're like, oh, this is what some of the former players were always talking about. So that's a win-win. In the transition of a stale Game Day, that's where I think Big Noon was flourishing, because it was just something different. It was some new voices, some new personalities, and it was the same old thing with Kirk Herbstreit aiding along Lee Corso, Desmond Howard not knowing nothing about nothing. I was going to use a Rose quote from Ozarks, but this is radio. I can't. Now that you've injected the new blood, and I'll be one of the first to admit, I was
Ruth
not a
said
huge. Oh, I'm sorry, Ruth. Yeah, I haven't always been a huge Pat McAfee fan, and not because he has Matt Rule and is a big Matt Rule fan. I've actually enjoyed a little bit more of his commentary, or at least him being consistent with what he's about.
Because you like people that can swear.
I don't hate it.
People do like bad words.
I know there's people on ESPN that don't like it.
Just seems like it's been longer. I usually watch McAfee from 11 to 12. Seems like since football has started, they go on longer stretches where the whole thing is muted.
I was in his wheelhouse too. And that's the thing though. Like their panel,
they're newer. They're a big. This week has been a big S word. Like last week was the big F word, which they will mute out.
Yeah.
But then they mute it out thinking that they will be followed up by another F word. So you'll go like 10, 15 seconds where everything is muted.
Like that Team America thing we played that one day.
Because you're on a roll.
I'm not usually a double barrel cusser guy. Like if I'm going to hit you with the F-bomb, I'm not going to double F-bomb. Okay, if I double F-bomb,
like what, the blank
then
and
you know that something's up. But I think you lose the impact of the singular F-bomb if you go bang, bang with the F-bomb.
Oh, 100%
I think you got to pick and choose when you drop in the F-bomb because it has more of an impact.
It's coaching dialect 101.
Yeah, you can't shoot your load with the F-bomb all at once.
No.
You're in there for a long time. Okay?
Why are you using the F word? To get attention, right? Not look at me, but to make a point, to be emphatic, right?
Because
I use it all the time.
Because I watched my baseball team go 83-79 this year. That's why.
That can happen too. But McAfee on game day, it at first just seemed like, okay, this is the birth of what they were trying to do with Lee Corso, to have the guy that's a little bit more off the cuff, the guy that's going to say whatever and is going to be more of the sideshow. But it's a little bit more than that. So his impact on that show, I will admit, is more watchable than I thought it was a year ago. And Saban's a rock star. Saban is far better than Urban Meyer because Saban doesn't give a blank.
You guys want to call your shot real quick here? Game day will be in Lincoln next year. Want to call your shot? There are two prime opportunities. Will game day be in Lincoln next year? By the way, I say yes to this question.
Let's see.
I'll say yes.
I got to look at the schedule. What are the games?
They're not, trust me, they're not coming to Lincoln for Nebraska Northwestern.
No.
USC and Michigan are on the home schedule next year.
Oh, there you go, USC.
Oh, God. If USC and Nebraska's game day in Lincoln again, that just brings up bad memories to when I was the last time at a Nebraska USC game when Nebraska got steamrolled and game day was here. I'll say no.
A lot of people are watching college football. A lot of people are just watching. A lot of people like ratings. It seems like every Monday when they announce college or NFL ratings, people are setting records.
People like football.
College football right now is on a heater, and it's really two conferences.
Well, and for a lot of the people that say they do not like what's going on in college football, it's hard to watch. It's hard to get on board with their team because
they watch the games.
Absolutely,
all the other stuff. You deal with that. I'm watching the game.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
The football is still the football.
Absolutely,
the brand is still the brand.
100%, and that's what I mean. Where people claim like, "Oh, I'm not going to watch or whatever," but you do. I mean, the numbers show it. People, it's never been more popular. Everything from the release of the game, the excitement of having that come out before the season as well. Like everything when it comes to what you're seeing on Saturdays, hell, even on Fridays, what you're seeing with those numbers too. What Nebraska, Illinois did.
If you are a brand.
True.
Because Rutgers, Washington didn't move the needle.
I mean, I watched, but
And the brand
countdown to action.
Brands matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people want to be in these two big conferences. People watch brands.
Yep.
More people that I know that have no interest in Georgia, Alabama, other than they want to watch college football, watch that game.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when you're flipping through the channel, I did this last night. The atmosphere in San Diego. You're flipping through the channel and you see something on TV that looks like, man, that's a great atmosphere.
Yep.
I mean, look I watched more WNBA games that did not involve Caitlin Clark this summer. I admit it. I'm okay with that. because I would tune in and it looked like a great atmosphere. And I'm like, oh, I'll watch for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, I've been watching it for 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay. Asia Wilson, you got to get better. Down 2-0, going back to Vegas. We will talk Iowa, Ohio State coming up next on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, week 4 of the 25K four-quarter pick'em is officially open. Make your picks now. Get a piece of the $25,000. You can play now at 1620thezone.com. And again, congratulations to our week 3 winner, Roger Breidenball, who won $2,500. Time to talk some one of the big games going on, not only in the Big Ten, but also in college football this weekend. It will be Ohio State and the Iowa Hawkeyes, as we are happy to be joined here on the 42-degree hotline with Chad Lysico of the Des Moines Register. Good morning, Chad. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Good to be back with you, Nick.
Wanted to ask you, first and foremost, we had this conversation yesterday, and you've got a pulse of both the Iowa and Iowa State fans around there. If Iowa State getting into November, as we get into November and looking at Iowa State's schedule, I would at least assume that they are going to be favored through the month of October. If they are being talked about as the clubhouse leader in the Big 12 and a college football playoff contender, and Iowa at the time is on the outside looking in, how do Iowa fans how would you anticipate Iowa fans would react to such a narrative at that point?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was actually something we talked about going into that Iowa State game, honestly, Nick, is like how the winner of that game will have it'd be a significant step in terms of, potential, if you're in the top 12 or not conversations in November. And because it is a conference versus conference thing. And I think, from Iowa fans and players' perspective, honestly, that was a game they should have won about 10 different ways. It's a game they have lots of regrets about. I've written about it, how it was comparable to the 2002 Iowa State game, and that was the year Iowa lost only one game, and it was at home to Iowa State after they blew a 24-7 halftime lead, and just sort of some inexplicable, uncharacteristic mistakes by Iowa. So there would be a lot of regret, a lot of frustration, I think, but also at the same time, if Iowa is in the conversation, you want Iowa State to do well, even though you hate to say that if you're a Hawkeye fan. Like, it's better for Iowa if Iowa State goes and wins the Big 12 and you lost to them by 1 point. Maybe you were competitive with Ohio State this week, and those are your only two losses. That gives you maybe a little bit better case.
Ohio State, Iowa, coming up at the 2:30 game in Columbus. Walk us through, and the last time we had you on, Chad, we talked about Caleb Johnson, and we're familiar with Caleb Johnson around here, and now kind of the rest of the country is starting to see, dang, he's a really good running back, and what he did in the second half against Minnesota was very impressive. But what's his journey like? Because he's not only playing well, and he's a key part of that offense, and he's one of the top running backs, not only in the Big Ten, but in the country. But there's the other side item of he's an Ohio kid that didn't get offered by Ohio State, that wasn't really going to go to Iowa. All of a sudden, his prep coach brings him to Iowa. I mean, walk us through the Caleb Johnson experience at the beginning of this year and what Saturday means for him individually.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy because he basically lost his job last year, and it was just because he had he turned a high ankle thing in week 2 against Iowa State, actually, and he just never was the same after it last year. After he led the team in rushing as a true freshman, as a true freshman, he was just sort of running, like he was using his athleticism to get those yards and those big plays. He had a 200-yard game at Purdue that year. And but so it was like, oh, wow, this guy's going to be the next great running back. And last year just sort of disappeared. And then this year, he's third string on the depth chart week 1. You're like, okay, well, I guess he just must not be practicing well. He's kind of fading out of the picture. Well, he was suspended for the first half of that opener. Comes in the second half, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns in the second half as Iowa's offense kind of wakes up. And then he's been great ever since. And he talked about he's from Hamilton, Ohio, so about exactly 100 miles southwest of Columbus. And he said basically, if you're in that area, you either hate Ohio State or you love them. And he was not in the camp that loves them. So he said even if they offered, he wouldn't have gone to Ohio State because he's the type of guy that wants to beat that team. So he has a lot of personal motivation, and he has grown up a lot maturity-wise. He's considered one of the hardest workers on the team now, and the work's paying off because you're seeing him understand how to run the football, not just use his traits. And that's what's uncorking these big runs. And obviously he comes into this game second in the country rushing. So a huge storyline on Saturday, absolutely.
Well, he's a big part of this stat and this question I want to ask you. So if you look at Iowa, the blueprint to success, I look at 2 things. that stand out and say, yeah, this seems like a very comfortable place for Iowa to be in. Averaging 250 per game on the ground, but maybe more importantly, giving up just 62 per game defensively. What stat between those two do you think is more important for this matchup on Saturday against Ohio State?
I'll say just the offensive run game production there, Nick, just because the defensive run, stopping the run has always been a pretty consistent trademark for Phil Parker and company, but you can't just stop the run against Ohio State. You have to actually stop big plays, which Iowa, we can get to that. That's been a weakness so far this year. So, to stay in this game, they're going to have to run the ball. They're going to have to control the clock. They're going to have to shorten the game. They're going to have to keep this where Ohio State only gets 8 or 9 possessions in this game. That'd be your goal if you're the Hawkeyes. They've done really well under Tim Lester in time of possessions. They're way up in third down conversions. They're up at 45% this year. Under Brian Ferentz, the last 2 years, they were in the 20s. Both the last 2 years, in the high 20s, third down conversions. That's not going to get it done. That's going to keep your defense on the field constantly. We saw that in 2022 at Ohio State. Iowa's offense just killed itself and just gave Ohio State gifts. And the defense actually held Ohio State without a touchdown on 9 of its first 10 drives in that game, but that was all in the first half. Because that's how many possessions they got. So you just got to shorten the game, control the clock with the run. And I do think that they have the opportunity to do that. I'm not saying they're going to, because Ohio State's defense is obviously really good too.
So let's flip it to the other side where Ohio State has all kinds of weapons, including a wide receiver who has stickier fingers than a 5-year-old eating a caramel apple at a pumpkin patch. But we know what Iowa can do defensively. What can they do? Can the offense score enough that the defense can neutralize that Ohio State offense to an extent, Chad?
I don't know if Iowa's offense can keep up. I'm going to be very curious to see if they can, I think 10 or 13 points is about what I'm expecting at this point, just because, this is a really good defense. But that said, they moved the ball a lot against Iowa State. They've got a really good defense. They just screwed up in the red zone. And they could have had 27, 30 points in that game pretty easily. But we'll see. I think defensively, you're going to have to try to hold them to field goals instead of touchdowns. And I know Ryan Day has been really aggressive on fourth downs this year, so maybe you bait them into, trying a fourth down and they miss it, and you get a big stop like that. So, the defense, I'm always confident in Phil Parker, but this is a monster challenge, especially against a defense that's given up some big plays this year in the passing game. Can you keep Ohio State in front of you? Because that's how you're going to keep up on offense. If you can hold them to field goals, shorten the game, make it like a 17-13 type of game in the fourth quarter, and just give yourselves a chance.
It's been a very long time. At least feels like it, since Cade McNamara was in a game where you're taking on a team that has a lot of talent. You mentioned Ohio State's defense too, and there was a time at Michigan where he seemed like an elite game manager, and had a lot of good surroundings as well. What's the level of expectation from the quarterback in this type of game, given Cade McNamara's history, but also what you've seen from him this year in this offense and Tim Lester?
Yeah, it's a big question here in Iowa City because he did have one of those spotlight type game situations last year at Penn State, and it went absolutely terribly. They lost 31-0 in the whiteout. Cade, I don't think he threw for 40 yards in that game. They had just lost Luke Lachey the week before. It was a disaster on offense. But he was also banged up last year. He wasn't healthy. So what they expect from him this week, guys, is exactly what you said. They need him to be a game manager. They don't need him to take over the game. They've got the big weapon on offense, which is Caleb Johnson.
Yep.
But they need to get him going. I think they can. I really do. Ohio State's linebacker play is probably their weakness. That feeds into busting a big run or two, maybe. Also feeds into Luke Lachey's return to Ohio. That'll be interesting to watch. So they just can't have Cade commit a bunch of turnovers. He's only committed one this year outside of a Hail Mary against Iowa State. That's pretty good in 4 games. They've been turnover-free the last 2. But he's been close. He's had some tip balls that have been, could have easily been picked off and run back against Minnesota. He had one of those. So it makes me nervous just watching him. I feel like he's He's ripe for one of those 3-4 turnover games, and that's the thing Iowa cannot have, absolutely. And there's some great athletes at Ohio State. He knows that better than anybody.
Yep.
He beat Ohio State in 2021, but as he said yesterday, that was a long time ago. that was 2 knee surgeries ago, almost 3 calendar years ago. So to talk about that I agree with him. It's not super relevant, especially because of if you look back at that game. Michigan just ran the ball like crazy against Ohio State in 2021. It wasn't really what Cade did.
What do you, moving forward, a quarterback in a Tim Lester offense, is it going to be more game manager, or can they get that position where it's dynamic? I mean, I always think of Brad Banks, who is one of my favorite Iowa quarterbacks of all time. But then there have been successful guys like Beathard and Stanzi. What do you think the future looks like at that position with Tim Lester as the OC?
Yeah, I mean, he runs the Shanahan-style offense, and it's super complicated. I feel like he's done about as good as you could expect this early in the season for not having either of his top 2 quarterbacks until fall camp. So I think you got to give him credit for the progress they've made. You think about what he's modeling this offense after, and it's the 49ers, it's the Rams, it's the Packers, and you think about, let's say, the 49ers. I mean, that's Brock Purdy is a great example. That's the type of quarterback I think I think is the maybe expectation for Tim Lester. I don't think you're necessarily going to have the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allen, the guys that are just making crazy plays. That's just not Iowa's history. It's and even like a Jordan Love in Green Bay, for example, which is where Lester came from. That's where he's building kind of some of his basic knowledge. He's buddied with Matt LaFleur. He played college ball with him. And he's, Caleb Johnson is his Aaron Jones from last year when the Packers got going crazy. And he needs Cade McNamara to beat Jordan Love, second half of last year, which is, Jordan Love isn't like running all over the place. He's just making smart reads, good throws to young receivers. And that's kind of where Iowa is. That's kind of the expectation I would have, I guess, for Lester this year and going forward.
You mentioned something earlier about if there is one concern defensively for Iowa, it is susceptible to big plays. We saw it in the second half against Iowa State as well. What have you seen out of this defense that, especially with Phil Parker, does so many things right and usually is very assignment sound, where there have been breakdowns?
Yeah, it's what's interesting is it hasn't been one guy. It's been just about everybody, just like once. They've kind of made their mistakes. Xavier Wampa, I talked to him yesterday. Of course, they could use a huge game from him. He's due on Saturday. He was recruited by Iowa, Ohio State, Notre Dame at the finish line. So that this would mean a lot to him to have a big game against a team that heavily recruited him. But anyway, he had a tough moment against Iowa State, a 75-yard touchdown that if that doesn't happen, Iowa probably beats the Cyclones. And, he just got sloppy in that moment. And I think we saw them clean it up a little bit against Minnesota. Troy hit him 3 times, once on special teams, but 2 times deep down the sideline. One was a safety's fault. One was a cornerback just sneaking up a little bit. And so it's been everybody. It's been 6th-year senior. It's been 1st-year starter. And, it's the type of thing where they've had a bye week now. They know. I'm not super worried about just a ton of plays over the top against Ohio State. I think they'll try them for sure.
Yeah.
I do wonder if Iowa has the cornerback play to keep up with Ohio State. That's a worry for me. You don't have Cooper DeJean anymore. You got Deshaun Lee, who's a small corner out there trying to defend Ohio State, and Jamari Harris, who's a really good player. But does he have elite athleticism? Probably not. So I think corner is going to be a spot that's going to get attacked on Saturday, and that's going to be a challenge. Even if you're ready for those big plays, it's hard to completely stop Ohio State.
Chad, safe travels out to Columbus. We always appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Had fun. Thanks, guys.
That's Chad Lystico from the Des Moines Register. Phil Parker against Chip Kelly.
It's a great match.
Elite athletes for Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, Smith and Williams, unbelievable wide receivers as freshmen in the college game.
Mm-hmm.
You can't miss tackles against Ohio State. I think Iowa, which Ohio State doesn't give up even 2 yards per carry, you're going to try and slow the game down. If it's aesthetically not pleasing, That's great for Iowa.
Oh, yeah, game on Iowa.
I mean, people will be like, Jesus, Big Ten football on CBS. But if the game looks like a track meet, hello, Ohio State is hitting their head on the goalpost, and that 20.5 looks like they're going to cover. I don't know. I think you'll find everybody likes Ohio State to win this game. Now it's just by how much.
Yeah.
They don't play much. This is only second time since 14, since the woodshed in Iowa City that they played.
Came out in the alternate uniforms.
And the game in Columbus the last time they played was not. It was, hey, Phil Parker, go and do this.
Yes.
And that got out of hand. So I think you have to slow the game down, limited possessions for Iowa to have a chance. And Caleb Johnson's going to have to get loose. But I like Ohio State in this game. But I don't think they're going to blow out. I don't think it'll be like a 35-point victory. I think Ohio State will cover the spread, which would just be 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's the part of I'm with Chad on Cade McNamara's presence in this game, because if there's an element to your team, there are teams that, hey, they do things so well that they don't care if you know what they're going to do. They're going to do it, and they're going to dare you to stop it. And it's the teams that have the ability to say, okay, that's what you're going to do. Well, we can stop it, and Ohio State defensively can. It's when Cade McNamara, if they're able to have some success, is when he has to throw the football. And that's where I'm with Chad. Where I think this is where you could see Cade McNamara have one of those games where he's forced to make a throw, and whether they're just getting pressure on him or he's making a bad decision, that there's only so much that in a game like this that I think you can rely on Caleb Johnson.
Got to remember one other element of this game. Guy played at Michigan.
Yeah.
He's played in this game before he's played in the big game before.
Well,
you don't think some people wearing Ohio State colors aren't going to come after him?
Absolutely they are. Absolutely they are. And that's where the question I bring up about, okay, well, you've played in this game, and as Chad mentioned, Cade McNamara even talked about that, it's probably not relevant, especially with the amount of time that has passed. It probably is relevant to Ohio State.
Oh, it's always.
It's whether you're not wearing the Michigan colors anymore, but you were representing them and you were part of a victory over them.
Ohio State fans used to like Jake Murdoch when he was at Iowa. He goes to Michigan, and he is enemy number 1. It happens.
Jake Rudock.
Jay Moore will join us at the top of the hour. Brandon Vogel as well in the last hour. Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in on a Wednesday on 1620 The Zone. More baseball today. Some teams are going home.
Should have worn my jersey today so I could get one day out of it.
Yeah. You wouldn't put yourself in the category of a dignified way to end the season?
No.
Like if Baltimore loses today.
That's bad. That's even worse.
There'll be some speaks while you're sitting eating some crab cakes because you won 101 and 91 and you can't win in the postseason. They've lost 4 in a row in the postseason. If the Orioles don't hit home runs, they're not very good. That's my takeaway from watching Orioles baseball this year. When they hit home runs, if they hit a couple of home runs, they're probably going to win. Yesterday, they got a really good performance out of Corbin Burns, probably his last appearance in Baltimore. But he was an ace yesterday. They couldn't get a big hit. They have to hit home runs. And they got handcuffed by some good pitching out of Kansas City. But a dignified way to end the season would not be for Baltimore. Like if Kansas City lost the next 2 games, you could say that's a dignified way to lose because we maybe didn't expect to be here. We got here, we got a taste.
And they're on their way.
Now, man, we're going to be ready for 2025.
And you can look at their win.
Like Atlanta. Atlanta gets beat today. I would say that's dignified with all the injuries to just make it to the postseason. Like even the Mets. But like if the Orioles and the Brewers and the Astros all went out today, I would not say that's a dignified way for your season to come to an end.
If the Royals went out in the next 2 games too, you'd say, look how you won the first game. Your dude had the RBI single and your other dude pitched his absolute ass off. And isn't that kind of been the identity of the major highlights of what you're going to get from Bobby Witt Jr. for years to come, and hopefully more of these types of moments? And Cole Reagans, who was absolutely lights out, who's been lights out pretty much all season long. You could live with that.
I like the Royals winning this series. I don't know if they'll win it today, but I don't trust the Orioles.
I had the Orioles winning
struggling.
in 3. I didn't. I have the Astros winning in 3 because I knew Skubal would shove yesterday, and I have the Orioles winning in 3. But just watching the Orioles, I'm not super confident in that. I'm ready to go to the Bronx to have the Royals and the Yankees play, and Larry Gura against Ron Guidry in the opening game
Dennis Leonard in
of
game
the
2.
ALDS.
Let's go.
And also, I can't wait to get baseball off ESPN. Why does ESPN hate baseball? First of all,
preach.
Back to the conversation that you were saying about telling your kid how to swear.
Yeah.
F-A-D-F-F. Is
what the F and F?
Why do we have to have the win probability on the screen?
Speaking of F words I said yesterday.
Okay, so maybe I just haven't been paying attention to it on Sunday Night Baseball. Is that something that they've been doing all season long?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, boy, I am clamoring for the win probability in the 4th inning.
Right.
And I sit there and watch it change. I mean, it's something that in my household we look forward to on Sunday nights. We sit down, we have a meal. We have a nice, good meal. The kids are
Sunday dinner.
That's the only time of the week that I tell the kids that they got to be there at the Sunday dinner table. And then we watch ESPN Sunday Night Baseball and we focus on the win probability changing by pitch.
Oh, it goes even further into not just their baseball broadcast, but if you ever catch SportsCenter and they're watching a game that's going back and forth. I don't even know what they had to say about the Mets Brewers game, but just from
they hate baseball.
The Mets and the Braves on that final Monday.
Lakers Media Day the other day.
That's all the graphics they were doing. It wasn't even showing just like, hey, look at what happened here. What could happen here? It showed here's the win probability graphic. Here's it now going back and forth. Here goes back and forth.
Why do they hate baseball? Like even to the lead into the Royals game, they had was it NBA Live? They didn't even have like a pregame show.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah. The NBA season hadn't even started.
Well, they got to have their fix.
Why does ESPN hate baseball? They used to do baseball so good. They used to have Baseball Tonight. They used to have John Miller and Joe Morgan.
Now I had Michael Kay doing my game.
I
fell asleep.
Their baseball coverage is so bad, and then their number 1 team is really bad. Okay, Carl Ravitch is a SportsCenter anchor trying to do baseball.
Yep.
It doesn't work.
Good anchor.
As Connor brought up yesterday, in the Braves-Mets game, the doubleheader they did the other day, they wouldn't stop talking about Chick-fil-A. I thought Chick-fil-A had bought the broadcast.
the days Boog was okay.
Why do they? But it's hard for me to listen to him because all I think about is the Cubs, and then the fact that he's doing the Brewers, which that is, oh man,
It'll be uncomfortable.
I feel bad. For $26, you can get in to watch the Brewers season end today. But it's okay because they only get 2 days in the postseason.
Mm-hmm. Trying to think when the peak of ESPN baseball would have been. I mean,
The 90s.
Was it John Miller and Joe Morgan?
Yes.
And
Because-
Baseball Tonight and highlights.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every night. Baseball games.
And they
multiple
didn't really
days.
have much competition, so maybe we didn't know that ESPN wasn't very good, but now they've got some competition. It's the sport makes it tough to view, to consume. And then you have ESPN where I'm sure there were a lot of people who watched those 4 games yesterday, but ESPN can do better. I don't need to see the win probability.
Yeah, that thing was very
in the first inning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's so that I guess
ooh, a leadoff single.
That's what I was.
By the way, the Braves, the Brewers are up 1-0. Look at that, 100% chance to win. Not
that's the thing that I was curious about on Sunday Night Baseball. Is I don't remember seeing that this in games. But that was the first thing I noticed is why is this up here in the first couple of innings? Who cares? Like, do you see it? This is the one thing I noticed too, is even per batter, based on how they got out of the count that they got on, that it would alter. It's like, really? Yeah. So the fact that you rolled over on a 2-1 count as opposed to a line out to right field, we're going to go ahead and factor that in on what that's going to do to the impact of the game.
And Paul tweets at the show. He goes, I bet the probability number is gambling, and they've leaned in on ESPN bet.
Mm-hmm.
But for us old school baseball people who still have stirrups,
you still have them?
And yeah, I still have my baseball uniform from high school.
Do you?
Yeah, because I thought I would use the pants.
Yeah.
The jersey I framed.
Okay.
But I still have the stirrups, I think, in a box.
Can I ask you, at what point in your life do you ever anticipate wearing stirrups again?
Well, if I was going to play softball.
Oh, okay.
I just have been waiting by the phone to get the call. I don't get the call to come down Kelly Park and be a +1.
You can just hang out at Kelly Park and be ready to go.
Yeah, I'm not that awkward. I got me in trouble once. I got banned from being outside of a Chuck E. Cheese.
You just hanging out at random parks, just waiting to be called upon, whether it's softball parks or not.
I bring all the goods. I got a football. I got cleats. I got shin guards. So in case, people that are having athletic activity in a park, if they need somebody, I'm ready to go. I can run back and get into my trunk. Doesn't matter what sport.
See, I'm laughing at you, but the most comfortable baseball pants that I ever had was one of my final years coaching in Columbus. They've now made 3 moves, and I have no intention of playing slow pitch softball anymore.
Mm-hmm.
No intention of really coaching anymore. I don't know why I need those, but for some reason, you just never know that, oh, hey, you know what? And I got the pants.
The last time I wore
them,
a
Halloween
actually,
costume.
the last time I wore them was not a baseball or softball activity. It was for a slip and slide.
Did you wear the stirrups or the pants?
The pants.
Okay.
The stirrups would have been
I thought maybe you just wore the stirrups and that was it.
No.
Might need slip and slide on Saturday.
No. I put the pants on to go to a slip and slide party.
The baseball pants to go to a slip and slide party? So you can slide properly?
Yeah. Okay. Because they slide. Like the baseball pants slides.
They do.
Like I don't want skin being removed from my leg because I'm wearing swim trunks and you hit that bad patch of the slip and slide.
Yeah,
the dry.
The dry patch, yeah.
It's like AstroTurf.
Hey,
did you go pop up or did you go face first?
You hit the dry slot, man. You got issues. But man, if you can just slide, you were fine.
We do love the dry slot.
Did anybody else wear baseball pants at this party?
No. And this was not a party that had anything to do with P. Diddy. Thank you, Chris.
Well, it wouldn't have been water then. It would have been the baby oil.
There's
nothing to worry about dry spots with baby oil.
All of these things we do for kids, we can't forget about us adults. The kids love the slip and slide. You know who likes the slip and slide? The adults.
We just
adult neighborhood slip and slide.
Yeah. Oh man, some of the best drinking games in my last 10 years have been the adult slip and slide, where you get at the very bottom.
Party coming up.
Cup.
I'm all into adult sleepovers. Yeah. We just have them as kids, but why can't you do them as an adult?
Indeed.
Yeah, it's called just hanging out before you realize, like, Jesus, it's 6 a.m. already? Okay, I should probably go. You're not really sleeping, though.
This is for somebody who might need to celebrate in Lincoln tonight with somebody that's turning 21. So I don't.
Pedialyte.
I'm like, hey, they got any specials there that you can get at 5?
Are you going to be doing? Are you going to be post?
Damn, you could have taken the
2016 World Series, Gary.
Hey, the only thing that's saving me is he has an interview at the School of Business at Nebraska for a job.
What time though?
8:00 tomorrow morning.
Oh,
yeah. That's the only thing that's saving. any, hey, are you coming down here to take me out for my 21st?
So it could actually be tomorrow night. Could it be delayed?
I'm
got to play like a champion on the 21st.
I'm guessing it's going to be post 6 o'clock on Saturday.
Oh, okay. So after that'd be hot.
The kids that turn 21 in Lincoln don't understand about us that did turn 21 in Lincoln, that you started at one bar, they gave you a piece of paper, you got a shot at every bar, but you had to sign your name.
Yep.
And so you went to the next bar, you had to sign your name. Next bar, you had to sign your name. And by the time you got to like the 12th bar, you could not, your handwriting was so bad, but I saved it. It's somewhere. I know that I saved it.
Didn't save it.
Because I thought it was like cool. I didn't know that was like a tradition in Lincoln. Now it has been, they don't do that anymore because of, things. But I was like, we'll do that on our own. I said like they probably give you a free birthday shot, right?
Oh, most places do. Yeah.
You turn 21?
Yeah.
But
they used to.
But here's the thing. I think all of us can relate that maybe, fell into a McLovin fake ID. It was more exciting to go to the bars before 21 than after 21.
See, I disagree. The
challenge of getting in and, oh my God, I might get caught. Or I might see a fellow student athlete in here that's not 21 and it might be cool.
So now
was the pursuit of getting into a bar when you're not 21.
My fake ID
then I got
was
21. Then I got 21 and I was like, they're like, yeah, come on in. I was like, really? You're not going to stare at it longer?
There was a club in downtown Omaha that I don't think it lasted very long, called The Shadow. The Shadow was the end of my fake ID, and it wasn't even used by me.
You know why I didn't last very long? Because it saw itself. Thank you.
There had to be something in there right there. And in fact, I believe maybe somebody had said that at one point. I had a South Dakota fake ID that worked once.
I'm kind of envious now.
When I was getting was buying beer from a gas station that was notorious for this particular ID to work, because we all had the same South. It wasn't the same ID, but so I never even got to go to a bar with it, because this is what pissed me off more than anything, is a friend of mine who used it. It was an 18 or older bar. He just didn't have an ID, period, but you had to have an ID to get in. So he used that. It got popped. I never had it. So this whole excitement of going to the bar with a fake ID, never got to experience that. Really upset about it. But I was very, very happy when I could just go in and never have to worry about that too. I was just as happy going when I was 21, the very first time on the Hour of Power. Had to do the 12 to 1. And then the next day, it was essentially the walkthrough. You did the walkthrough at midnight on the night. Yep. And then the next day, you played like a champion, and I did. 27 shots.
I've learned way too much.
Jesus
Christ. We're different. Like, I was told that kids don't go to the bars as much in Lincoln anymore. They stay at home. They have house parties, things like that, and it's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I was like, I was like, hey, are you going to Super Saver? Where are you going? Are you going to Russ's on Washington? With Kevlar on.
So instead of bar hopping, you're actually grocery store or liquor store hopping?
Yeah, because
to get various items, and then you're just going to bring it all over the house, and then it just crescendos into one fun night of drinking.
It's generally thought Target is too expensive. Walmart is the place to go.
Next week it's Circle Week, so I might even it out.
So I don't know. I have to pace myself here, because I may be in a situation of leading a 21-year-old down O Street tonight.
This would be great for content.
Right now, you seem somewhat worried. All it takes is getting back into the moment, though.
That's true.
And then old habits kick in, and before you're not even thinking about what time you got to wake up the next day.
You're right.
You're in the zone.
Call a couple safe plays to get you warmed up, and then
you're in the zone, man.
Yeah.
So be careful.
But we would be looking at different things. Like, I would just like to enjoy the atmosphere. He'd be in it for something else.
Oh,
as he should.
Now, but I did tell him that so his girlfriend doesn't turn. She doesn't turn 21 for a while.
Oh no!
And I go. So I was trying to map this out with him.
She can be the DD.
I was like, "Here's the deal. How many friends do you have that are 21?" And he said, "Actually, I don't. The guys I hang out with, I'm the only one." So I'm like, "Oh, we might be lucky here." But that's okay. Good. That's okay. It's Parents' Weekend in Lincoln this weekend for the fraternities, and so we'll be drinking in front of the Union.
Oh, okay, yeah, because you can now do that. By the way,
still blows me away that green space in front of the Union in Lincoln that's the res.
You can.
It is. They got a huge grill going. Like, people are walking around with beer. I mean, it's. I was blown away last year when I went there. I was like, are we going to get in trouble? They got 300 college kids.
Yeah.
And their parents are standing there drinking on that green space in front of the Union. And some, I don't know.
So is
some typical frat kid. He goes, bro. He goes, don't worry about it. He goes, you're safe here. You're safe with me. And he put his arm around me.
Of course he did.
And I was like, hey, go Big Red.
So what's the little technicality thing there too? Like that's
Doesn't belong to the university.
Okay. So a few weeks ago when
it's also homecoming in Lincoln this weekend.
Yes, it is. We were drinking between tailgates. So we were walking over by the bridge right by Pinnacle Bank Arena that you would, take to get to Haymarket Park. I mean, at one point I did think, oh, should I dispose of this? I'm watching everybody walk by. As long as you got a koozie. And people, we're walking right by law enforcement that is handling traffic.
Yeah. Drinking as well.
They're not eyeing like
as long as
you got in there.
As long as you are not a knucklehead.
Yeah. Right. You're not acting a fool or bringing attention to yourself by doing stupid things.
Making tinkle publicly.
They're probably not gonna.
Except for the one guy who didn't he text during the crossover on Monday. He was the only guy who's ever been cited.
It's 20 years ago. Nebraska's back, baby. John writes in fake IDs, teaching young children to use the F word. Sharp and Handley doing the Lord's work this morning.
Hey, we're just
weekdays 6 to 10 on 1620 The Zone.
Preparing you.
I just use myself as
an shelter yourself, pretend all that stuff doesn't exist. But
I use myself as an example. Don't be like me.
Or me.
I think you're more pious than me.
Oh yeah, probably, but I still tend to say offensive things.
Yeah, but you probably didn't. Yeah, in college. Okay.
Although you've seen
lots of things. Trust me.
No, you've seen snippets of old single
for
Nick.
10 years.
You've seen snippets of old single Nick. I was a much different person.
See, then you went and got married.
It's true.
That's the problem. I tell my friends, like really good friends, that they were my Neanderthal. They're in my phone. They're in the Neanderthal list. Like if I want to be a Neanderthal, I would call them. Like most of them are married now, and they stopped being Neanderthals.
Yeah, it's
I do remember you explaining to me the difference in the categories.
Oh, I have people that I have like nine people in my phone that are in the category of, if you want to just tie one on, they're the people to do it. But now most of them are married, or they have like real good jobs where they're a public figure and they're like, I can't. But if you want to come to my backyard, I got a nice setup here.
Hey,
if you want to come and hang out at the pool, no, I don't want to hang out at the pool.
Why not? It's a good time. It took me a while.
Have a soap.
I was deep into my 30s before I got married. Had a tough time letting that life go, but I think my liver eventually has thanked me for it. But don't knock the backyard or the driveway parties or the garage parties too, because I'm telling you, those can get nuts.
Oh, I bet in Bennington they're just bangers.
Jamming out to some Stranglehold at 11:30 at night.
You know what, man? You're invited anytime. We'll show you how we get down in old Bunstown.
Standing around talking about, man, are we going to get that bond issue passed? How about that Cam Lenhart football team?
We really could use some rain.
That's actually a lot of the conversation.
Are the Lordsons the best athletes ever in the history of Bennington High School? Jay Moore, arguably the best athlete ever at Elkhorn High.
Quite a bit. A lot of the conversation is that.
Hey, you gonna cut that grass?
Quit bugging me.
Hey, who does your lawn?
Yep.
Hey, love the mud jacking you got going on there, and who did that for you? Is it a local? Oh yeah,
we were talking about epoxy flooring in the garages the other day.
It's Frank and Randy. They own a place in Blair. It's I got the number inside.
This is. I can't say this isn't true because a lot of it is true, but you know what?
Followed by some loud Pantera.
I enjoy it.
Hey,
I really enjoy it.
I grew up in a white flight suburb. I know how we talk. Now
it is a lot different than when I grew up in South Millard.
Now I live in the urban core.
Yeah,
you got to adjust.
Well, it's way different than even my days in South Millard. Back when the Millard South Indians were the Indians. It's true. We had a lot of different conversations back in South.
You got to adjust. I'm like Martine Crumple. I can go inside or outside. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. 1620 The Zone. All right, Blackshirt Jay Moore will join us here in about 10 minutes. We'll discuss Rutgers, which is a very interesting football team. Well-coached, tough team, Big Ten typical team, which Nebraska's already seen a couple of Northern Iowa and Illinois and Rutgers. But there are some stats to consume here about Rutgers. One, they only have 4 sacks. They only have, they are second to last in the Big Ten in tackles for loss. Here are the stats that I think you should pay a lot of attention to. And I said this earlier about chasing points in this game. I'm not a big advocate for, hey, get a big lead in the first quarter and then run away with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you like the under in the first quarter, then maybe you ought to jump on it when it comes out. Rutgers is one of the few teams in the country that has not scored on their opening drive, and they have not allowed a touchdown on their opening drive. They are also somebody who has a running back. And remember, Nebraska against running backs. I think it's Iowa. I'll go back and look at this, and we have people that probably know this off the top of their head. I think Iowa was the last time the Nebraska defense allowed a running back to go over 100 yards.
Yes, last year, yep.
Okay. So this year, they've only allowed one running back to go over 50 yards.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to face a running back who averages 6 a tote. 40% of his yards are in the fourth quarter when Rutgers gets a lead and they squeeze the clock and they don't allow you an opportunity to come back. Mm-hmm. Also a running game that is 12th in the country, second in the Big Ten, 237.5 yards per game. I think it's important for Nebraska to get a lead and not just a 7-point lead, and 7 greater than 3 in this game, especially, if you're in the red zone where they're really, really good at red zone defense. 11 times the opposition has gotten to the red zone, 4 touchdowns, 2 field goals. But I think Nebraska needs to get a lead in this game, because if Nebraska falls behind by more than 1 score, it will be the tension convention. But that first quarter under, I would peg it right now, and I haven't even looked to see what it is.
I would also add, okay, you bring up the red zone part of this.
Don't score in the red zone. Score from outside of the red zone.
Well, based on what Nebraska does and what Rutgers doesn't allow, that would give you the best path for success. But eventually, as Nebraska gets themselves into the red zone, I feel from both standpoints, from the Rutgers side of it and from the Nebraska side of it, if that first one you punch in, that is huge, 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 huge for Nebraska. From what they've failed to do, but also against a defense that just does not give that up. And then all of a sudden what that does for Rutgers, if there is a way to, I don't think there's anything about this game that says either team is really going to be able to break it open by at least the traditional sense of a couple of scores. But if Nebraska is to, and what you're laying out there is to play from ahead, that first red zone trip, I'm not saying you lose the game if you don't punch it in, but if you punch it in, I think it's huge. I think it's almost game on.
Nebraska scores without getting into the red zone. Explosive plays. I don't know that Nebraska against Rutgers is built to stack 12 and 13 and 14 play drives, but they are stacked to have explosive plays against a pass rush that doesn't get home very often.
Mm-hmm. And that's been the major development. It's a good thing to bring up right there. It's been a major development about this offense that has maybe not had the true identity, or maybe it was a question I asked Sam yesterday as far as if you're in the red zone, what are you doing? What if you're Nebraska, what works best?
Their goal is they want to run the football into the end zone.
Mm-hmm. To get points into the end zone.
Well, no, that Rule was asked before the season even began last year. Like there was a discussion about the red zone.
Yeah.
And he said, well, our whole goal is to run the ball into the end zone when we're in the red zone.
Yep. And obviously that has come in all different shapes and sizes of how they want to do that. So that leads me to believe that that's a team that they don't know exactly what works for them when things tighten up in the red zone. But probably the biggest development about this offense that, again, last year it lacked so much was the big play, was the threat of having a guy like Ja'Cory Barney, but also, and you've brought him up, and I think he's another one to keep an eye on too, is Jalen Lloyd. Being able to utilize that speed and space. Satterfield talked about it yesterday on how they can be creative of attacking the edge, and not, again, in the traditional sense where you just have stretch plays with your running back, because those guys have the ability to get there. the big play is a huge development for this offense. So obviously that's something you have to circle. But I'm telling you, if they find themselves in a first and goal situation inside the 10, they punch that thing in the first half. That is a major, major step, if in my opinion, for Nebraska to try to pull away in this game.
Yeah, I think Rutgers only trailed once, and that was 3-0 against Washington. If they have to chase
only allowed
points,
3 points.
If they have to chase points, that's a good thing for Nebraska. All right, Jay Moore stops by next on 1620 The Zone. right, last hour on the middle of the week, and it's a good time to talk to our good friend. Oh, I see what you did there. Jay Moore, black shirt, pride of Big Red Wrap-Up, Elkhorn, Nebraska, NFL, hell of a golfer, good guy, sitting in his office. Good morning.
Morning, guys. How we doing?
Good. I think I covered all of that. Please put the check in the mail. You can send it right to the radio station.
You take Venmo?
You know what? I don't have a Venmo, but I can set that up quickly.
Okay. All right. Just holler at me. We'll take care of it.
I love that John Bullock is getting his flowers because I loved him at Creighton Prep, and I wondered, wow, how do college coaches not see what I see doing games? And, Nebraska said, hey, we'd like to see you run this number, and if you do, we got a scout. Not. Then he's a walk-on, and he's worked his way from the back end playing linebacker to all Big Ten-ish, maybe NFL-ish. I love that he got his flowers. We can talk about JB, but I want to talk about somebody else who, if you're looking at stats, you're like, oh, man, I think they're having a bad year. Can you walk us through what, because of how good he is, Nash Hutmacher is going through on a week-by-week basis on what he has to encounter to help the other 10 guys on the field?
Yeah, I think it's funny when, people are always paying attention to stat lines, splash plays, and if people aren't making those plays, they're probably like, oh, he's not playing well. But I think, obviously, you put Ty maybe in this category. You saw a little bit, Ty had that great sack against Purdue on Saturday afternoon, but it's kind of the difference of being the hunted versus the hunter in a guy like Nash's situation. People are identifying how good he is, and they're making sure, like, all right, this guy cannot ruin us. I think last year in the Big Ten and across the country and the teams that we played, there was a little bit of a learning curve with the 3-3-5. How does Tony White kind of want to handle things? Nash got a lot of one-on-one situations and was very, very successful. I think this year teams are like, we can't let him pick us apart. When you have a guy that is that agile and athletic and that strong at the point of attack, like Nash is, you got to identify two guys into his to take care of him. So I think he's taken on two guys, and I think now you've seen where the linebackers like a John Bullock, and now that Javen Wright's back, they're going to be able to clean up in this situation because he's taken up two blockers. Offensive line coaches and offensive coordinators are identifying Nash and saying, "Hey, we can't block this guy single because he will kill us." So I think that's just the situation. I think he's playing just fine. I think he's made more plays that have impressed me just from his athletic ability. I mean, that play against Illinois where he chased down Altmaier on a 3rd and long-ish or 4th down play and knocked him out of bounds. I mean, that's big time ball, and people probably don't see that as much. He's not making a tackle behind the line of scrimmage. He's not sacking the quarterback. He defended a block. He knocked the guy in the backfield, got off, almost fell down, and he's able to chase down a quarterback from a zero shade position, which is you just don't see that too often. So I think he's playing fine. I think the D line's again playing fine. It's just these offenses are identifying, okay, we gotta double some guys in this 3-man front because if we don't, they're going to kill us.
Mm-hmm. And with all of that being said, and the matchup this weekend against a team, I know there's been a lot of comparisons to what Illinois did, and I think the quarterback run threat exists. I think Illinois had better skilled players when it came to wide receiver than what Rutgers have, but they have a better running back. So you know exactly what Rutgers wants to do, and they're not going to really hide that. Everything you mentioned there, especially with the first and second line guys right there, what is being emphasized? Because Gary brought this up too, and this has been something about the defense with some of the leaky yards. When you look at Kyle Monangai, who gets a lot of those, how do you neutralize that threat there?
Yeah, I think where this is going to suit well Nebraska's defense, and why I tend to like this matchup a little better than some, maybe even Northern Iowa and Illinois in the run game is Rutgers runs the ball very similar to how Nebraska runs the ball. So I think that's going to bode well. A lot of the same concepts, split zones, power counter, some of the same stuff that they've seen since, spring ball, fall camp, so on and so forth. So I think they've seen some of these things. Now, Rutgers will add some wrinkles in here they'll kind of hit you with a couple plays, same concepts, and then boom, see if you're still on your P's and Q's and they'll throw a little wrinkle in there to see if you're staying disciplined or you're going to want to shoot a gap because you saw the same thing a couple times. But I think what I saw in Purdue from the jump from Illinois to Purdue was guys were just in better position defensively. I think there was a more defined edge within the defense, and that's huge. Setting an edge and forcing the play back into your help is everything. I think a lot of times leaky yardage, missed tackles comes from guys because they kind of panic because you get a guy, a running back, or even a receiver, and he kind of has a two-way go on you, and that's too hard. These guys are too good in the Big Ten and in Division I football that you give them a two-way go. it's a 10% chance really to make a tackle by yourself or at least get the guy get a shot on him. So I see that with more defined roles by everybody. I saw guys taking care of their doing their job. The edge was set. Force the ball carrier back into your help, back into your linebackers, back into your secondary. Guys were getting off blocks better because they know they're just put themselves in a better situation, not kind of scrambling around. A little less movement up front defensively. Where I love, you can do some things in the run game. You can shoot gaps and stuff, but sometimes you can also get gashed that way because guys just get going fast so quickly one way. They get out of control, and teams can kind of cave it down, shorten the edge, and bounce it out. And all of a sudden, you're putting your secondary, your safeties in a tough spot to come and fill when they're trying to play in coverage as well. So everything is just a little more defined, cleaned up. Like the edge is set. They just got to continue to do the same things against Rutgers. And like I said, Rutgers is damn near rushing for 240 yards through the first 4 games. So obviously they're going to keep doing that. Quarterback run game is here and there. You'd like to RPO it a little bit. But I think they're in a good situation just because the run game has been so similar to what Nebraska's obviously tried to do this year. They've seen all through fall camp and spring ball.
All right, so take me into the mind of a defender. And you touched on a little bit with the leaky yardage. And he's got 3 of his 4 games. He's gone over 100. Nebraska hasn't given up a 100-yard rusher since the Iowa game last year. They've only given up 1 rusher that's gone over 50. So that's kind of a game within the game and in a game that's going to be really physical. But what do you do as a defender? Because he runs angry. It's almost like he's beast mode, and he's got that extra gear that he hits for somebody who is that physical. But he's also got this other thing, Jay, watching them play this year, all of Virginia Tech, all of Washington. He's got this patented dead leg jump cut, and then he goes into beast mode. If you get him in space, because he gets a lot of yards after contact, so let's say the initial guy doesn't get him down, and now it's one-on-one, in the back of your mind, he loves that dead leg jump cut. How do you defend that?
Yeah, it's tough. So, sometimes it's, hey, best of luck. But like we talked about before with tackling, right? It's having bad intentions, and you got to go shoot your gun. You got to be aggressive. You can't just sit back there and let him. You got to go and you got to force the issue. And like I said, it's easy to force the issue when you know where your help is. You can shoot your gun to force them to cut back inside your help, or if you got help outside of you, you can shoot your gun to his inside leg to force him to jump it outside into your help. So it's just understanding defense and the schemes and where your help is. That's going to help immensely. But you're right; he's gotten a lot of his yardage after contact. On Bigger Rapid, we had one of their guys talk, and he says our offensive line has been great. I mean, most of his yards have been after contact, and so you got multiple guys are going to have to come in there. One guy you just hopefully get a hit on him, wrap up a leg, do something. Another guy can come in there, and then hopefully you can start ripping the ball out by the third guy. But you're gonna have a lot of team tackling going on. This dude's tough. He's physical. He runs angry. He's pissed off. And it's gonna be a great matchup for our defense. I think that's what this game comes down to, is how is our defensive run game stacked up against their offensive run game. And I tell you what, the way I saw things get cleaned up against Purdue, in as well as Purdue has run the ball in the first 4 games. That's probably the only thing they've been able to do offensively. Things are going in the right way, and that's good, obviously, because what happened against Illinois was just very, very uncharacteristic of this defense and what we've seen with this 3-3-5 and Tony White's defense. So, but yeah, you're one-on-one with any running back. I don't care who it is. It's always a tough situation. You just got to force them back into your help and have a good understanding where your help is and be in total control. You can't you have to have good footwork, good pad level, a good base to you. Otherwise, if you don't, you're probably you're gonna be embarrassed.
Jay, I know a lot is being made of the secondary with the play of Sierra Wright. Knowing what Tommy Hill's dealing with, it still feels like anybody who's ever had plantar fasciitis, that bye week, if you could somehow get through this week and get through the bye week, then maybe he's in a much better place. But all of a sudden, you're getting Sierra Wright with a lot of good experience. Then there's that guy, Bly Hill, too. When you're looking at the secondary all of a sudden, especially post-bye week, does that seem like all of a sudden getting some of these reps for these younger guys and guys that are kind of waiting in the wings right now, that all of a sudden that is going to be a good problem to have when it comes to rotation and being able to sift through who's going to get the most snaps?
Yeah, totally. I think depth is what you want. Obviously, Tommy Hill was playing at a high level, and then you deal with plantar fasciitis, and I've dealt with it on and off, and it's a pain to deal with. Some days are better than the others. You just it's a pain tolerance thing, right? And whether you can do some things to do an injection to help, but rest and recovery is the biggest thing, and then just see how you can handle it. But it's always funny, it's some people are like, oh, it's a foot thing, but man, it's always the best comparison was, offensive linemen can get through a lot because they're like 18-wheelers, right? A little things go wrong, you can work through it. But those DBs and wide receivers, man, they're kind of like a Ferrari, right? They're high level stuff. You get one little thing wrong, that thing can't go. So he's got to work through it. But it's nice that Sierra's come through and played well, really, in the last couple games. I thought he played pretty good against Illinois, and obviously played well against Purdue. And then you get Bly hopefully coming back. You can't have enough depth in this secondary. And things are going to happen, especially when you get in the meat of the season. You're playing physical Big Ten teams every week. Something's going to pop up. But hopefully Tommy's back. We need him. He's a weapon on that defense. He can potentially erase one half of the field when he's healthy. But it's nice to see some young guys develop and step up when their number's been called. Because honestly, we haven't seen that in a few years. So obviously, guys are practicing the right way and taking the coaching the right way, which is obviously very important.
20 quarters into the season, what is the identity of Nebraska's offense?
That's a good question. I would say balanced. And I don't know if that's a good identity that people want. But I think they are balanced. I think they can – obviously, they want to run it. They're going to try to run it. Wasn't as successful against Illinois. The numbers are a little bit skewed because of the sack yardages towards the end of the game. But with the weapons you have at running back, multi-dimensional, but then it's okay. You want to shut down the run. You want to bring an extra guy into the box and play with 8. Okay. So who's going to take care of Banks? Who's going to take care of Nior? Who's going to take care of Fedoni? I think we've seen that with Rayola's ability to step up in the pocket and have a good presence and put the ball on the money and only where his guys can catch it. So I'd say balance is a huge thing. I think some weeks they're going to be able to run it well, and some weeks they're not, and they're going to be able to throw it well. So I think this offense is. I just as a defensive coordinator, you got to kind of pick your poison. And do you want to get after Rayola? Do you want to blitz them? Do you want to put your guys in man-to-man coverage against Nayor and against Banks and against Barney? You want to get guys in man-to-man coverage where we're running those little jet sweeps and bubble pass, whatever it is that we've seen through these couple of weeks and attacking the edges? Okay, go ahead, right? So it's just I think balance, and I love it. I like the balance, and it's just each week is just going to be its own little situation, obviously, and some teams are just have to pick it and what they want to do. But I think we have a counter right now offensively to a lot of things that defenses are trying to do to us.
This shouldn't be a surprise at all, but I think maybe one of the things to watch last week when it came to Dylan Raiola was how does he handle being away from the home environment, and as frustration had to be mounting in the first half when you're just not able to get points out of having the football, getting some first downs, getting some yards. The dude just does it. As far as his body language, nothing changes. And there is that calming effect. And you again saw that on the road. As a defender, as someone that is also playing their ass off like the defense was, but you also see that even keel approach by Dylan Raiola. How big of a boost is that, especially when you're hoping that second half is going to change and you're finally going to get the fruits of that labor.
Yeah, that's one of the most important characteristics and demeanors of a quarterback is you never can be too high and you can never be too low. You gotta flatline as hard as it is. And I know, listen, his blood's pumping and mine's probably going 1,000 miles an hour, but your ability to kind of slow everything down, which is probably the most impressive thing we've seen from Dylan as a young quarterback, is his ability to do that. Listen, I mean, the end of the Illinois game wasn't great, but that's a small piece of the puzzle. But his ability, his pocket presence, his ability to get the ball to really where only his guys can get it. I mean, the 2 interceptions he's thrown are easily could have been caught by our guys. His ability to throw a very catchable football. The screen game passes have been point on. His timing, people take for granted. I mean, those little handoffs and touch passes that he's getting to Barney, those are hard. That's tough to get the timing of that, your footwork, the handoffs. That's not an easy task. And he's handled those fantastically. But his ability just to keep things going, if mistakes happen, hey, no big deal, right? We'll get it fixed. We'll get it handled. Let's communicate with our guys. Let's communicate with the wide receivers. Hey, we'll get it fixed. Well, hey, if it's on me, it's on me. If something happened, hey, you just got to, handle this route a little differently against this coverage. This is what I was seeing. Just do this. I'm guessing the same kind of communication is happening with Sat and Thomas on the sidelines. So it's a fun thing to have, man, because we've had good quarterbacks. But I tell you what, the demeanor, it's like he's 38, right? He's 18 going on 38, and it's fun to see, and it's nice to have as a defense, as a coach, as a program builder. And like I said, you're just going to see him just get better and better each week.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Jay, good to see you last night. More black shirts on that show, please. You and Jay were on the show together. Less eyebacks, just kidding. But always, we appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you next week in the bye week.
All right, sounds good, boys.
That's Jay Moore. You can see him and Michael Severe, among others. Sean Callahan.
Jay was almost interrupted during that, too.
Jay Foreman.
He was pulling the yell. Hey, get back. I got something important going on with these boys.
But Jay Moore joins us every Wednesday from his office. But you can see him every Tuesday on Big Red Wrap-Up. So the women's basketball is going first at the Big Ten. In a little transition here because we have it on in the studio. They are not doing podium sessions anymore, individual podium sessions.
Just like the sit-down rap session.
So Amy Williams was with Jan, the new head basketball coach at Iowa, and then Dawn Pritzelwhite who was at South Dakota, went to West Virginia, now at Minnesota. So Mike Hall had those three coaches. So they're not doing like Doc is at the mic and he's being asked questions and people, I have no idea what he's saying, which is a true story. The first Big Ten media days.
When you get the transcript at the end, you're like, I don't know.
Like
so
Doc got
asked two questions, and somebody in the audience went, I have no idea what he's saying. No idea. But so they're not doing like you make an opening statement. I kind of like this. This has become more popular. Like you go to banquets or stuff, and they have a speaker. Like the MC does like a Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, for basketball, so you'd have 6 of those because you had 18 teams.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like it. So they're doing that. So tomorrow, do we know who Hoiberg is with?
No. I feel like every time that we looked at any time at Big Ten Media Day, you just want to know who was accompanying the coach, what players were accompanying the coach to Big Ten Media Days. Now,
St. Thomas, by the way, you have former Millard North, Loyola of Chicago product, Northern Colorado product. Now at USC will be in Chicago.
I'm just seeing podium sessions. I wonder if they even put this out.
Musselman and Woodson.
Okay. All right. That's okay. Here it is. Yeah. So now they have the interview sessions that will. Okay.
Oh, what I just say? That's not true.
Okay.
This is fantastic.
I know. I'm okay. Now I have the.
This is great.
There's the women.
Oh, it is. It's Musselman and Woodson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike Woodson, Fred Hoiberg, Eric Musselman. That'll be at 10 o'clock. Yeah,
Go, hey, how about that DeMarcus Lawrence in the Assembly Hall last year? How about that game?
Nebraska, Fred's not one to, I guess, flex a whole heck of a lot, but he could probably have a couple of things that you could say to Mike Woodson about the Indiana series.
You think Dave Revson or Rick Pizzo will be like, hey, Fred, I heart you.
Please, God, no. Maybe that's why they're doing this. Did Greg Doyle ruin
Let's see.
this?
See, they missed out on opportunities. They need to get the hotheads. Like, they should have Brad Underwood and Fran McCaffrey together and Greg Gard.
Ooh. Well,
why didn't they do this last year? They could have had
Brad Underwood and Greg Gard are together.
But you got to add.
Yeah, you don't have
like
Fran.
Dusty May's a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's not like going to be.
He's the calming influence.
But see, why didn't they do this last year? You could have had Gard and Juwan Howard together.
Well,
give me a reason to watch.
Okay,
there you go.
Between the Brad Underwood, Dusty May, Greg Gard pairing, and then the Mike Woodson, Fred Hoiberg, Eric Musselman pairing, I'm seeing a theme between those two examples, at least, because you have the even keel, steady as they go type of guy. We know that Eric Musselman can get fired up every now and then. Mike Woodson can just get flat out grumpy a lot of times.
And so can I.
Fred's just going to keep it. And they're all listed. I understand this is also alphabetically, but Dusty May and Fred Hoiberg are both listed in the middle, and I feel like that's where they always are. They're just very even keel guys. So there you go. That's what they're doing. They're trying to have any type of conflict that might arise be squashed by the even keel gentlemen. You got Tom Izzo, Dana Altman, and Mike Rhodes. That'll be the second session. Kevin Willard, Steve Peichel, Mick Cronin,
Tom
Ben
and
Woodson.
Tom and Dana are going to talk about, hey, did you really think when we were sitting around and Naismith came up with this idea?
That's pretty good. It's the old peach bucket.
Dude, they have Kevin Willard and Mick Cronin together.
Mm-hmm. Ben Johnson, Matt Painter, Danny Sprinkle, then Fran, Chris Collins, and Jake Diebel.
Not ready for Big Ten Media Days for basketball to be here.
It's here. Here it is.
But
that's why we have Jacob.
I've not seen any preseason official. The Big Ten won't do it because we will poll that is out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Quick break. We'll come back. Brandon Vogel will be joining us shortly. By the way, unlike last year where they were in Minneapolis where the conference tournament is, they are in Chicago today. They are in Rosemont, Illinois.
Yes.
Not at the Big Ten offices.
Which is also in
Did they move the volleyball out of the Big Ten offices? Or was it still at the Big Ten offices?
That's a good question. I don't know where that was this year.
I'm digging this format. I think they should, for basketball, they should have this format moving forward.
Yeah, and I don't even know if you could do this from a football standpoint, from the simple fact that there's just so many media attendees that you're going to have the individual.
Yeah, but they still
session.
get the side session.
Yeah.
I've always thought the USC women's coach looks like she should still be in college.
A little bit.
Yeah. What you guys have that that you don't have that I have is a player named Juju.
Yes.
Yeah. Take that. Welcome to the Big Ten. All right.
She's all right.
Brandon, what did you say?
I said she's all right.
Oh, I thought you said she's hot.
I thought that too.
I'm sorry. I said she's all right. Very sarcastic, meaning she's very, very good, Darren. Okay. Where you get things twisted.
Do you have rankings? Didn't he just say she's hot?
I thought that's what I heard.
I
believe you, Nick.
I said
I'm
it
just
fast.
saying.
I just said she's all right.
You're going to get an email from Darren later today about, I think that's very inappropriate that now you are commenting
Well, now it's,
on if
I brought
head
up,
coaches are hot or not.
I brought up Greg Doyle. I guess now I just had my own awkward moment.
Nick on his podcast will be doing today, Big Ten coaches, male, female, hot or not.
I said she's all right as talking about Juju Watkins and the fact that she's a very good player.
Dude,
and I was being modest.
She's rocking some dunks. Nice on her.
I got some dunks.
USC by 100. Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
And join the VIP club and sign up for 1620. The email, you'll be the first to know all the exciting content that's happening on 1620 The Zone, including sports news, our contests, our four-quarter pick'em, promotions, and more. Sign up today at 1620thezone.com.
Brandon Vogel from counterread.com going to join us here momentarily. It's not new. If you've been watching, you know. If you've been watching him for a while, you know. But I was glad to see John Bullock got a lot of love yesterday. And people are mentioning the three-letter word about the NFL. He might be, because I'm starting to think about midway through the college football season, because this is what I do, of all conference, John Bullock, good enough to be first team all Big Ten?
Stats would tell you yes.
All right, we're not doing stats. Stats in a vacuum.
Eyeball test, yes, but that is seeing a lot more of John Bullock in only isolated moments of other guys that would be up for, like the Iowa linebacking core too.
This is a great story that you hope that these stories happen more often, but the rosters are shrinking. Anybody that saw him play at Creighton Prep were like, why are not more? I remember saying it on TV a couple of times. Why are not more schools after him? And Nebraska told him to get a scholarship, he had to run a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't going to do that. But if you know, you know. If a guy is a player, he's a player. And he walks on at Nebraska, his brother is there, and look what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, he's turned into a really good football player, and that's what he is. He's just a football player. Now, they need some help with linebacker. The linebackers outside of number 5 need to play better consistently. Javen Wright coming back will help, and I think his pitch count will go up even more this weekend against Rutgers. But there's that discussion about, does Nebraska on defense have a first-team all-Big Ten guy? You know, we thought before the year Tommy Hill would be a possibility, but Tommy's been shelved a little bit. The other debate that will be very interesting, if the season unfolds like we think it will, and Nebraska doesn't have the bottom fall out, and they have a respectable season where they're going to a bowl game and they're not just sneaking into a bowl, but maybe they're two wins past a bowl. So they're an 8-win team. And then you have what's going on at Ohio State. How will the distribution of freshmen of the year in the Big Ten look like?
That's a great question, because what Jeremiah Smith is doing is insane as far as the type play. I mean, the dude looks like he's NFL ready already.
And he is.
But this is where, this is going to be so interesting, because I think there's always going to be, and hey, they deserve it. So this isn't me crying foul on this, that there's going to be an Ohio State brand bias because of the types of players really at each class that they have, whether it's a true freshman or a 6th-year senior. By the way, if you're a 6th-year senior at Ohio State, then you're probably not an NFL guy, because you've probably already gone to the league. But there's going to be that Ohio State brand bias that is deserved, but I also think there's that quarterback position bias, where Dylan Raiola playing the quarterback position, I also think gets a lot more looks, a lot more eyeballs. So if he stays on the trajectory that he is on, and I agree with Jay, there's a reason I brought up just his overall demeanor in that game is he's I use this because I have a almost 4-year-old at home. He's a sponge, but he's a sponge with the game environment and the game itself, where everything that he is taking in, I can't tell you how excited I am to see in the second half of what he looks like. If he stays on that trajectory, I still think there's a slight lean to the quarterback position, regardless of what team it's representing. I think that gets a lot more of the attention. So I would think Dylan Raiola would have a leg up there.
Be very curious. I'm sure in the Athletic, we'll probably put out a mid-season all Big Ten conference. Maybe not the all 22, but MVP, freshman, defense, offensive player, game so far.
Quickly about Bullock.
Coach of the year, which the guy at Indiana probably will win the midseason Coach of the Year. I just want to prepare people. Nebraska wins this weekend. Indiana wins this weekend. They both are on a bye. You will have so much Hoosier hysteria love. Are you able to handle it? Are you going to pace yourself around here? Because one team will be 5-1, the other will be unbeaten. And it'll be all about Indiana. All about Indiana. Just Not saying that's wrong. I mean, that's great. It's great. It's great for the conference that Indiana is better with an oblong ball than a round ball.
It'll be shades of 2020, of the COVID year, when they were all the rage in the Big Ten, and Tom Allen, when he hit his peak as popular coach. Quickly on Bullock, and this was brought up by Damon on Big Red Wrap-Up last night, that I thought was a great point about John Bullock and what you're seeing from him right now, of a guy, and even Tony White had mentioned how they identified him, and he gave Matt Rule a lot of credit when they're watching him work out, and he's the third or fourth at that position. They're saying, hey, let's work this guy out at linebacker, and being able to identify that, how it's worked out, but also the fact that he's played at the third level. So that comfortability, this is what Damon brought up too, that I thought was a great point. His comfortability of playing in space, especially with modern offenses that you see right now, it's kind of a rare skill for a linebacker.
Now, the offensive line for Rutgers is not as physical as Illinois. They had to move him a little bit outside against Illinois because they didn't want him to get washed out. So he'll be able to play more of his natural position against Rutgers. All right, Brandon Vogel, whose natural position is in his studio with plenty of leather-bound books behind him that are fake, because I've asked. It's just a background.
There's snacks in there.
He will join us coming up next. All right, Nebraska-Rutgers coming up on Saturday. Let's talk weather. Let's start there as we welcome in Brandon Vogel from counterread.com. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
The rare opening game of October is going to be 98 in Lincoln, but the wind will be howling at 20 to 30 miles an hour. Weather a factor, yay or nay in this game?
If Nebraska could kick the ball, I thought might think it might be more. So I think the heat might be the bigger piece of that. Although you do wonder about that with the passing game. I think offensively for Nebraska, this game sets up an interesting sort of challenge. Greg Schiano this week, gave high praise to both Raiola and the receivers for the Huskers. What he kind of left out there is that the secondary is once again really good. And it's good overall defense. They've struggled a little bit in kind of keeping teams off schedule via the run. So it sets up as one of those where I'm like, Nebraska might have an opportunity here to gain some yards on the ground. It hasn't looked all that good though when Nebraska's tried to do that. So this is an interesting game on a lot of fronts.
There's watching the offense the last couple of weeks. There are things that I think typically you'd say a good, solid in between the tackles run game could all of a sudden set up what you want to do on the edge, whether that is jet sweep or any type of explosive plays on the edge. Do we look at Nebraska's offense right now in almost the exact opposite, where the ability to get Ja'Cory Barney involved, maybe even get a Jalen Lloyd involved in whether we're talking about the flip play, whether we're talking about jet sweep and just using guys on the edge, that all of a sudden that does set up what they want to do in between the tackles?
I think so. I think we've seen that during Nebraska's better games. Ran the ball better in the second half against Purdue. That's maybe the best example. And as I try to puzzle this Rutgers game together and how I look at it, I think Nebraska's offense right now it really has to benefit from its balance, because some of those things you mentioned, the jet sweeps, the tip passes to Barney, and even a lot of the RPO stuff to the edge is almost a function of the run game for me, whether they're counted as passes or not. So it's one of those where I think you really have to look at the full picture rather than, Nebraska can run the ball, but they might struggle to pass it or whatever it may be.
Let me first start with this. When you look at Rutgers, I know this might lead to the running back, but when you look at Rutgers as a whole operation, what stands out to you that you go, yeah, that's Schiano, that's something that they could live in the Big Ten by doing consistently?
I think it's the defense piece of it, and we've seen their rise, last year and continued into this year, because they had maybe the Big Ten's best running backs, certainly one of the Big Ten's best running backs. The O-line is very Big Ten-esque, for lack of a better term. Like, you don't look at that group and say, oh, that looks like, a Rutgers O-line. It looks like a Big Ten offensive line. And it's really remarkable. I have a lot of respect for what Schiano did, because he was maybe one of the only people who probably truly believed that he could go and at Rutgers in the Big Ten, get them to a Big Ten level of football playing the way that they play. It's very straight ahead. It's match our effort and execution. And they've been winning that battle a lot since the start of 2023. I think they do a good job of recruiting to what they have locally. I think we've seen that show up particularly on defense. And if you can tackle well, and play hard-nosed defense, you're going to give yourself a shot in this league. And you can do that at Rutgers.
So there's the other part of Rutgers, the way they play defense, and they squeeze the game down. They've played a 26-23 game and a 21-18 game. If Rutgers has to chase points and they're behind, your feeling is what compared to if Nebraska falls behind and has to chase points?
I think that would be edge Nebraska, to the point of them getting to a kind of contemporary or traditional Big Ten style. Like, sitting on games is what it is. They don't give up big plays. They're able to run the football. When they plucked Ethan Kaliakmanis from the transfer portal over the offseason, it kind of raised my eyebrows. But they've been right. I mean, his numbers are extraordinary, and he's executing that offense. They're able to stay on schedule through the run and the pass. Not the most explosive group, though, which I think is where the falling behind or having a lead piece really comes into play. And that's one where Nebraska would have an edge.
The Calic Manis thing is interesting to me because I keep thinking about when people initially were excited about him in Minnesota is what he brings now current to Rutgers. And I get the feeling that this was what Minnesota was supposed to have the most success. Is it any coincidence that he's turning the ball over less and he is probably a lot more effective with that run game because of what they have up front, but also more importantly, which we saw Minnesota with a run of those guys like a Monagai, who is that type of running back.
Yeah, it's a curious one because you can look at Minnesota with Darius Taylor a year ago, like they're capable of running the ball. They always have mammoth O lines. So I think it's something a little bit more behind the scenes in terms of maybe a new setting, some different coaching points for him. I mean, the big number for me is his completion percentage jumped 10%. 10 percentage points, and you've limited the interceptions. And I do think, as good as Darius Taylor was as a true freshman for Minnesota, like Mongai is just a different animal altogether. So comprehensively, they're really making it work. And Kaliak Manis, I wouldn't have put him in this category at the start of the year, but he's been the guy that they've needed to execute what they're trying to do.
Once Nebraska crosses inside of the 40 of the opposition, what happens?
That's one of the big pieces of this. So Nebraska ranks 110th right now offensively in that category. Rutgers ranks 10th. It's kind of the classical style there of don't give up the big plays, and if you do that, and if you can tighten up when you're in the that you're feeling pretty close to your own goal line defensively, you can get by with that. And for Nebraska, like it is beyond just the gap there, and what the teams have done to this point. That's where you got to factor in the kicking game. Nebraska hasn't snapped a field goal from outside the 30 yet this season. We've seen the misses. So if the 30 was the line up to this point, I wonder what it realistically is now. And the second half of Purdue was kind of like a different beast. Like I think if Nebraska ended up at 4th and 4 at the 24, like they'd try one early in this game, but how it goes might determine how likely they are to try it again. So that's another area where you can look at that matchup and say, well, Nebraska has to win it, which I think they absolutely do. It's another one where I think the big plays piece of it comes into, can you score from distance? Because that's kind of the best way to avoid that finishing drives part of it is get a couple 20, 30, 40-yard touchdowns.
This was a conversation that we had last week about early in the game, especially with an unproven kicker, trying to give him some confidence and being able to know that you can go to that phase of your game if you are in wherever the hell the line is right now, Brandon, because I think you're right. That's a crazy stat that they haven't even attempted anything outside the 30. Okay, it makes sense to early first quarter, second quarter, maybe a similar parameters as he came in on the first field goal attempt that he missed last week against Purdue. How long do you go with that? If you have, say, a snapping issue or say John Hull hooks one and you're still early in that game, yet you're having a similar situation where you're getting close to the red zone, but you're not able to get anything further. Is that a one and done situation where you're like, all right, screw it. We've got to be 4 down territory? Or do you, like they tried last week, given the opponent, because I think they had a lot of confidence that their defense could still shut down Purdue, that you give multiple opportunities or at least tries at it as long as it's in the first half?
Yeah, I think it's got to be pretty close to a one and done situation, depending on like the state of the game. If Nebraska is playing defensively, like it did against Purdue, which this is much bigger challenge against this offense, then maybe you give yourself a little bit of leeway. If you're ahead, that would change things as well. But it's pretty dicey, and I think the big piece with that is will we see Nebraska make more third down calls, kind of acknowledging that hey, we think we need to go for it more than we typically would. Because early in that Purdue game, with the scenario where Raiola had 2 throws, on 3rd and 4th down, I know Rule spoke about it, but that was not that seemed like a kind of ad hoc decision of let's go for it, even though we know it wasn't. Because why not just try and run the ball and get it down to 4th and 2 or whatever it was. So we'll see. That'll be a telling piece of this.
Hey, another telling piece is Rutgers has only been penalized 16 times. They played one fewer game. Nebraska's been penalized 40 times. You wrote about it on the recap of the Purdue game. Walk me through a chart for the counter read subscribers that read it. You went through a chart of the cost of a flag, which you and I have talked about before. The points per drive in a drive that includes a flag or did not include a flag. How big of a deal is it that Nebraska's been penalized 40 times in 5 games?
Yeah. So the interesting thing to me about this, and I guess it makes sense with I think what we saw is so far the offense has been a little bit better able to withstand those. Without a penalty, it's up over 3 points per drive, which is good. With the penalty, it drops down to closer to 2. But the big one is defense, and we can look to the Illinois game as kind of the best example of this. But when you're getting 15 yarders on that side of the ball, it becomes huge. Like without a penalty, the defense is giving up 1 point a drive basically, which is among the top 5, 6, 7 in the country. With it gets up to about 2.5, which is still good, but you're talking about a drive being twice as valuable if it includes a penalty on the defense. So the personal fouls, the 15-yarders stand out, but Nebraska also, I don't know the number off the top of my head, it gets flagged for offside a lot, and those can become costly too.
Going back to the penalty part of this too, and some of the things that Rutgers has been able to do and not do when it comes to just shooting themselves in the foot. And I want to look at their defense here for a moment. Their third down conversion rate, what they're holding teams to, given the types of teams that they've played. Where do you, if we're looking at Nebraska in a consistent, let's just say 3rd and 5, whatever you want to do there, 3rd and 5, what about what does this defense show you that could play into what Nebraska also wants to do? And I know that sounds crazy because you want to obviously be 3rd and a little bit closer to the sticks there, but a 3rd and 5, you might see where I'm getting at here, where they want to spread out a little bit and maybe feel a little bit more confident with 15 making plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think Raiola is the big differentiator there, and I looked at it a couple of games ago, and this was beyond. This was in more like pure 3rd and long situations. Raiola's been excellent. He's been really, really good and saved Nebraska a bunch. So even getting to 3rd and 5, it's that difficult kind of middle ground where I'd be surprised if Nebraska was able to run it consistently, at least handoff run game in those situations. So it becomes, it comes down to your receivers and your quarterback. And so far Nebraska's been okay with that piece of it. So we'll see. I think Sciatto was kind of underplaying a little bit his secondary, but that's the good on good matchup there. I think Nebraska's passing game versus that Rutgers pass defense, and it's gonna be a fascinating one.
We'll get chatter on this. What does Nebraska do well on special teams? I want to end on see if we can find a positive here. If we don't, then we'll send you on your way and wish you well.
Well, no, there's one that jumps off the page. Brian Buschini, I think, has 4 tackles on the season. First specialist to have that many tackles. Not a good thing when your punter has to make 3 tackles in one game. So there's that. He's punted pretty well for the most part. His coverage has been a little hit or miss, but that's about it. I mean, you look at power ratings, SP Plus, FPI, both from ESPN. They have Nebraska, I think, in the bottom 5 in terms of special teams efficiency. It's a big issue.
Any way to get it fixed?
I mean, you should be able to fix some of the coverage stuff. Like I know Rule said at the start of the season he wants to be aggressive on those kickoffs. That you can kind of change your mindset. Hopefully punt coverage can get a bit better. Haven't seen enough out of the punt return game to think any major changes coming there. And then place kicking, of course, remains the biggest issue of all.
We will find out sooner than later. As always, great work by you and Aaron. I appreciate the conversation as always, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Brandon Vogel from Hale Varsity, or excuse me, counterread.com. Counterread.com, formerly of Hale Varsity. Banging on Counter Read. You can follow him on Twitter at Brandon L. Vogel. All right, that'll do it. Enjoy your baseball today. There could be 4 teams moving on.
Mm-hmm.
One of them could be the Kansas City Royals. One of them,
I'm here for it.
could be the Detroit Tigers.
Yes.
I've accepted
The
it.
New York Mets and Grimace, or the San Diego Padres.
We forget about Grimace.
Enjoy your baseball. We'll be a day closer to Nebraska Rutgers on a Thursday show when we reconvene tomorrow at 6. Crossovers coming up next on 1620 The Zone.